session. I'm glad you're all here. Excuse me. We're going to move directly into public comment on all items. This is the time to comment on any matter, agenda or non-agenda item, falling in within the scope of the Billings City Council. Anything that we can do anything about, we'd love to hear from you. Remember though, we have some rules. No booing, no cheering, no clapping or anything like that. This is a chance for everyone to have their say. And we don't want anybody to feel intimidated or anything along those lines. Also, you may only speak once on any one item. Okay, so if there's any public comment now, I'll open up the session for public comment. Once you reach the podium, please tell us who you are and what part of town you live in. If there's more than one person who wants to speak, I suggest for purposes of time, we all kind of come forward and at least line up in the aisleway. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Nelson and council members. My name is Jim Nichols, and I reside at 239 Beverly Hill Boulevard. I am in full support of building the Stagecoach Trail, and as you know, there is no safe access by pedestrian or alternative travel to the wonderful parks and trails on the rims. Since 2016, the Stagecoach Trail has been selected as the best option for Rimrocks to Valley access and represents an integral part of the marathon loop circumnavigating our city. Also, 90% of the 2024 appropriated funding is from a federal alternative transportation grant and private contributions. The Stagecoach Trail has wide support from the Billings community. In a 2022 random trail survey with 95% confidence, 86% of Billings residents surveyed identified the Stagecoach Trail as very important or somewhat important. This past November, HDR presented their trail design options to a packed audience at the Billings Public Library Community Meeting Center. This was an excellent public forum. As a result of this wide community support, the Friends of Stagecoach Trail has been organized, and I believe some of its members are here tonight. The Friends of Stagecoach Trail group is also planning to adopt this trail in order to assist in trail management after its completion. Lastly, I would like to personally thank Mr. Bryant Johnson and his team at HDR for their engineering work, as well as Mr. Ken Ard and his team at the city's engineering division. Let's build the Stagecoach Trail. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Womack. I live at 3091 Park Hill Drive, and I am here to in support also of the Stagecoach Trail for all the reasons that were expressed by Mr. Nichols. I won't reiterate those. I will say that I have lived in Billings for over 40 years, and in that time, when I was younger, I always rode up and down the Zimmerman Trail, sometimes at risk of my life. I strongly support the Stagecoach Trail for future generations and younger generations for all the reasons that we've talked about. And I am still riding on a pedal assist electric bike. So as soon as you get the Stagecoach Trail built, I'm going to go up it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Albano, and I live at 2076 Fay Circle. And I've been a resident of Billings since 1992. That's 34 years. And I've always been an active walker, runner, and bicyclist in this community. Over the years, the City of Billings and TrailNet have spent resources, a lot of resources, time and planning to develop our current trail system. It's a wonderful and deserves recognition, but is not complete until the trails from the valley to the rims and to the heights are connected. It will be a safe way to get that up to the top and over into the heights. This is where the Stagecoach Trail comes in. It has the opportunity to be a marquee trail for our city, an opportunity to showcase the best geographical feature that we have, the Rimrocks. It allows non-motorized access to one of the best views in the state of Montana. A view of the Yellowstone River, the Beartooth Mountains, the Pryor Mountains, and even a little bit of the Bighorn Mountains. Not to mention every sunrise, sunset, and incredible storms that you can see from the rims. Imagine how the city of Billings can be proud of a trail that can attract new citizens, businesses, visitors, and its current residents to be active part of our community and enjoy this trail and the amazing engineering feat of taking us up to the rim rocks without a vehicle. I'm asking our city council to support the Stagecoach Trail development and future management. It's truly important for a future Billings and a healthy community. Thank you.
Mayor and City Council, my name is Doug Modrow, 320 Clark Avenue. My wife and I are here tonight to speak in support of our Billings Trail system, and in particular the Stagecoach Trail. We urge the City Council to put this critical trail into our master plan for Billings and the surrounding area. We believe and support the trail system in Billings because we are both walkers and bike riders, and because our enjoyment of seeing Billings beyond the typical window of a car, there's numerous benefits that the trail systems offer. First, safe spaces for community gathering, easy access to running and walking spaces to promote a healthy Billings. Trails connect us to our environment and heritage and foster a sense of ownership in our community. They promote environmental awareness and stewardship, and trails offer accessible recreation opportunities for all members of our community. And another benefit is our economic benefit. Communities with strong trail systems attract new businesses, offer opportunities for small businesses such as coffee or sandwich shops, bicycle shops, and it's also a way that we can recruit professionals and medical providers to our city and the region, which I think is very important to all of us that need some additional medical care in our older age as we age. And then additionally, I'd like to support it for our children and for our grandchildren, as well as any children and grandchildren you may have as well. Thank you.
Hi, we are Steve and Joan Chai. We live at 5011 Cherokee Trail, and we are here to voice our support of the completion of the Stagecoach multi-use trail. It is an extremely valuable addition to connecting our existing trails or our existing multi-use trails. I think it's so very important. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. My name is Jim Downs. I live at 2205 Dahlia Lane here in Billings, and I am 100% in favor of the Stagecoach Trail. I'm the former owner of the Spoke Shop, and I believe this project is just so vital to Billings that it should go forward. Thank you very much.
Mayor Nelson and council members, my name is Aso Shefka, and I reside at 4818 Audubon Way, and I am in full support of the Stagecoach Trail. As you've heard, this trail was selected as the best option for Rimrocks to Valley access, and in my opinion represents a forward-looking approach to trails in the greater Billings area. As you have heard, 90% of the funding for this trail comes from outside of the city budget. This trail has wide community support beyond those that have spoken here tonight and will continue to speak here tonight. As a voter and taxpayer in both Ward 4 and Ward 5, I encourage both of my ward representatives to support this trail in whatever way possible, and really just to get it done. I look forward to taking my children up this trail. I'm an avid biker, and I hope that my kids continue to be an avid biker. I really do think that this will be a gem and a real attraction to Billings here. For a place that advocates itself as Montana's trailhead, I think this is something that's very appropriate to fund. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Starks. I wasn't here for Stagecoach Trail, but I definitely support that as well. I'm here to speak about ICE and Billings. First, I wanted to direct you to recent polls reported by CNN. 55% from a New York Times poll support all illegal immigrants should be deported. 64% from a Marquette poll, 57 from a CBS News poll, 56 from a ABC News poll, and CNN reported that 63% support deporting those who arrived in the last 4 years, and 87% of all that were surveyed support deporting all of the illegal immigrants with criminal records. Many of our past presidents have talked about it, and there's no following through. This is what it looks like following through. These polls were released after the situation with Nicole Good, who crossed state lines to interfere with federal officers doing their jobs, and Alex Peretti, who also interfered with officers. Due to a small minority of the citizens in Billings being louder than the majority, there has been a lot of anti-ICE talk and cries to stop ICE in Billings. There have been many false claims on social media saying ICE is targeting schools and students in Billings. There was also a false claim here at council that ICE raided an elderly woman's home. ICE did question the suspect from that bust, and he was busted for meth distribution charges, but ICE did not lead that raid. There is absolutely no evidence supporting these claims. I have heard from sources in law enforcement that there have been so many calls to the sheriff's office and to the jail that they have stopped honoring detaining orders and released illegal immigrants that have committed crimes and no longer holding them until ICE picks up the criminals. This is the same jail that the city of Billings is putting money into for expansion, releasing criminal illegal immigrants into our community because of the people that are complaining. In 2024, Trump received almost 65% of the vote in Yellowstone County. The people that come here in opposition of ICE are not the majority. When the news reported the anti-ICE protests, there were around 50 people who showed up. Another local news reported dozens. That is not a majority in a population of nearly 130,000 people. The people have come here recently have demanded of you to make anti-ICE policy. That's insane to come here demanding things when they stand wanting to protect democracy. And a word which is not used in the Constitution. If we had true democracy, which we are a constitutional republic, not a democracy, they would lose the support for their issues. In closing, I ask that you pay attention to the facts, not just the feelings of a small percentage of people. I'm almost done.
Thank you.
Who use false information and get loud and spread fear across our community to protect criminals that should not be in our country. Do not make
Thank you, sir.
Anti-ICE policy. Do not make policy in support. If you do make any policies, I'd encourage you guys to speak to law enforcement and the people that are dealing with these people before you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Beverly McHugh. I live in 963 Dixon Street in Billings. I'm here in support of the Stagecoach Trail. I grew up in Montana, but my husband and I lived in Minneapolis, St. Paul area before we moved to Billings. When we got to Billings in 1991, we said, where are all the trails? We enjoyed lots of trails in that part of the community. Since then, there has been a lot of development of trails, and that has really improved the quality of life for us. It has helped us stay in the community and for others. I'd like to see us continue with the creating trails that are inviting and welcoming to the residents of Billings, its visitors. As a person who spent their career of over 40 years helping people develop healthy lifestyles, I can firsthand tell you that if we create environments that help people be physically active, enjoy outdoors, people will take that opportunity. That is one of the biggest complaints is people didn't know where to go, where to do it safely. And so I would like to see more trails that are accessible. And that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, city administrator, Paul Clark, Southside Triangle. And it's nice to hear that there are interest in the Stagecoach Trail and other trails. This is great. It's great to see participation. Participation. I'll work on that one. Okay. In the Southside Triangle recently, and I'm sure some of you got emails, maybe some did, maybe it just went to spam, but that's the world we live in. But let me just reiterate real quick. As I did a real quick survey of my neighborhood on the Southside Triangle, I noticed that of that perimeter, 53 streetlights, I'll say it again, 53 streetlights are out. And there are 4 different styles of streetlights that I have down in that neighborhood. That neighborhood is over 100 years old. I'm going to stay here, and I'll be buried on Central, as 4 other heritages back that way. But anyway, so when I directed my attention towards Northwest Energy, again, goes volleys back. You guys know I've been up here months. Mr. Boyette, Mr. Pittman, Mr. Nixon, Congressman, Councilwoman Shaw. Breathe, Paul, breathe. But the problem comes back to what it's called back order issues. Now listen, I've been a truck driver for 35 years. When someone says back order issues, that's my speak of let's go to another warehouse where there are more of this product. Now, you look at Kansas City, Denver, Dallas, Chicago. These places are loaded with warehouses. And what do you think's in these warehouses? Product. So when someone says from Northwest Energy that we cannot get this product, why cannot you get this product? I wonder. I've been all over this world. I've been all over the states. I've have a lot of miles in reverse more people than most people do in forward. Okay? That's a truck driver joke. Anyway, so to the issue of back order, General Electric, they probably don't produce them anymore. Maybe it's produced in China, Vietnam, Mexico. I don't know, but definitely it's not Cleveland anymore. It's not Chicago anymore. It's not Dallas. So to me, that's just, let's just get them out the door and let them hear. We'll just kind of pat you on the back, say, come back again. You guys know I come back again a lot. So let's get on that. I need some help. I'm not the only one that's concerned about this. I cannot be the only one. I need some help. I need some lights down there. There's crime. I would love to ride my trail on the south side. That would be great. That would be great. But I'm not about to go down there because I live down there. I'm not going to take a trail down to the South Park, go around it on my bike at 9 o'clock at night. Are you guys crazy? Okay, we need that.
Sir.
Full support on Billings Police and this phone tracker issue. When a man can tell me that he knows where I was at South Park on Easter, but cannot tell me where's my city lights, there's a problem. God bless everyone, and I'll be back next week.
Any other public comment? Thank you. Please come forward and do your best to keep your time to 3 minutes.
I can be pretty quick.
Thank you.
My name's Everett. I'm a recent transplant from Wyoming and a medical professional. Just wanted to say, offering my support for this project, a big part of coming here, being a part of this community and the appeal was this type of infrastructure and seeing you guys giving back to the community and building these types of projects. So I just wanted to let you know that it does matter. It does matter to those of us coming here. It does matter to keep us here. And that's a big part of the appeal. So I hope you'll consider that.
Good evening, council members, honorable mayor, administration. My name is James Cordnoy. I reside at 1011 O'Malley Drive. I just wanted to come up and say I'm 100% behind this Stagecoach Trail initiative. I think this is a game changer for Billings. As an avid outdoorsman and cyclist, I utilize the trail system at the rims and often ride up Zimmerman. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and I'd hate to see it be missed. So thank you.
Anyone else? Any other public comment? All right, I'm going to close this part of our hearing, and we'll move to the first item on the agenda. Mr. Kukulski, you want to introduce it?
Yeah, Mayor and Council. So Mac Fogelson, our city engineer, is here tonight. Part of the process and our rules have at the roughly the 30% design stage of certain projects that meet the threshold. We come here, share them with you, get you updated on where things are, and get any feedback. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mac to take it away.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. Mac Fogelsong, City Engineer. Also with me tonight, Bryant Johnson. He's with the consultant team, HDR Engineering, and then Ken Ard, part of our team with City Engineering. So obviously you may have some questions, and we have some technical experts here to answer those. So we thought we'd bring the whole team. So why are we here tonight? We're doing a design update. So I'm calling it 30%. That's my number. It's kind of to let everyone know where we are. We have had some meetings at the TrailNet and some other meetings, some public meetings, some one-on-one homeowners. There's a balance of getting enough of that feedback before we come to council so that we can sort of inform council. But we wanted to get you a fresh look at some of this. So the project as a whole, recall our design goes from Rimrock Road, connecting Rimrock Road all the way up to the Skyline Trail. So the design as it's contemplated right now is that entire corridor. The puzzle that gets laid in engineering's lap is how do we get there and how do we do it in the budget? So that's the overriding factors.
While mayor and council, while they're working on the technology side, just as an FYI, council member Aspinall asked some good questions over the weekend on this project. Matt gave a response this afternoon. I just forwarded that to mayor and council. So all of you in the public can see those responses, but Mac, I think, did a good job giving some answers that'd be beneficial for you all to see. So.
That's the best.
We have to be flexible in engineering. All right, so the next piece I wanted to remind everyone, just the where's the funding coming from? So this is the budget reminder slide. The big piece of this is a $4.8 million transportation alternatives grant, aka federal funds. We also had match from Billings TrailNet and a trail stewardship grant. The other piece of that was coming from city funds, which is Parks and Rec, general funds. And then I thought this was not in the pieces that was with your packet, but someone had asked, where are you in terms of your budget on your design fees? And so we're about 49% through those numbers. Remaining construction budget about $4.7 million. So, being the creative engineer that Bryant is, I asked him. I said, "What?" He has our three routes. How do we get up the steep part of the hill? And he first said, "Well, I have option 1, I have option 2, and option 3." And I said, "That's not going to work." And so then he said, "Well, I have a red line, a blue line, and a yellow line." And I said, "That's not going to work." And so then he came back with and says, "Well, I have the rush hour ridge walk, the incline of regret, and the stagecoach rise." So let's get into the detail. So the rush hour ridge walk, that would be the route if we kind of bolted the trail onto the edge of the Zimmerman Trail. So a few points there. Zimmerman Trail is about a 9.5% grade, kind of where it's shown there. We have lots of retaining walls to build. So this, from a cost standpoint, $7.3 million. And then you get to sort of have the experience of walking next to Zimmerman Trail. So probably not a great option, and we can't afford it. So over on the right-hand side, and there's been a lot of routes looked at sort of around the horn, if you will, the incline of regret. That grade, there's an orange highlighted space there, and that has a grade of about 20% for 600 feet. So not a trail that we would want to send most folks on. The mayor in his fitness can probably handle that, but not a great facility that we would want to put our stamp of approval on. Some other elements with that, we have lots of high-risk rockfall kind of to the northeast. That route also requires lots of fill. It would be coming down right above the homes, so not a real preferred alternative. And then because of the rockfall mitigation, we also have a high cost on that one. So the what I call the middle route, Stagecoach Rise, other folks are talking about switchbacks. Wanted to go over the grade on that. So we're looking at kind of a 8 to 8.5% through the switchbacks, if you will. There'll be some landings, 15 by 20 feet at the ends of each of those. We have less rockfall risk and things like that. And then this one appears at this point to meet our budget as well. So visually, you saw the first slide and you think, whoa, those ramps are quite steep. They're less steep than actually Zimmerman Trail there. But I wanted to give you an example, for comparison that might be similar. So everyone knows where Swords Park is and the trail coming out of the 6th Avenue bypass. So that's the blue line there. The bulk of that climbs up to Yellowstone Kelly is about an 8% grade. So that's kind of equivalent, if you've ridden or walked that, to what our route through the switchbacks would be. And then what does the trail look like along the frontage of Zimmerman Trail near Rimrock? So this just kind of shows it would be probably close to the curb there. I have a slide in a second that shows a cross-section, but that's physically where we would locate that. We have some transition into those adjacent properties, but we have that figured out. Here's just a view of what that cross-section, this is looking up the hill, would look like. The road on the left, the trail, probably a 4-foot buffer with a fence similar to what you might see on Skyline Trail, existing driveways on the east. So what have we heard through the process, through our meetings? We've heard some discussions about, well, where might parking be? Those kinds of things. It's kind of similar to Swords Park Trail. Maybe you have parking that's, fairly remote. We have some answers to that. A few things on maintenance. We've discussed with parks. what that might be. This is what I would call a placeholder. This cost is similar to the cost of maintaining Skyline Trail, which has the amenities, the park shelters, things like that. There's much more garbage collection, so I would say that's a high budget number. We're thinking that's going to be less than that. We have had some questions about the ability to build this within the budget. And then on the lower end there, we've had some questions about privacy, with the trail being above the homes. Just some thoughts here on where there might be some available parking. We looked at Flora Avenue, which is the east-west street just north of Rimrock, and also Brayton. Many of the homes are fronting Rimrock Road there, so there is some space on Flora as well as Brayton. The homes front to the opposite street there as well. So here's I have a question mark on this. Someone has asked, would there be a potential parking lot somewhere? This is one that was sketched up. We're not proposing this with the design at this point. It's a future option that someone could add at the end of Brayton. There's something for consideration. That is not in the current plan. It's a concept only. So where we are, what's next? We're kind of at this February standpoint, 30% design update. If we can continue down the design path, we're looking toward a fall-winter bidding period. Potentially construction early winter of 2027. We've talked about potentially even doing a couple of construction seasons to get more cost-effective bids to kind of open that up to various contractors. And I guess with that, open to questions from myself or Bryant or Ken.
All right. Do we have any questions? Councilperson Kennedy.
Matt, could you show the slide of the money? That's where it's all going to come down to. So explain that. How much do you have? How much is going to be needed for this?
So at this point, we have I'm a round numbers guy, so I know I have some detailed numbers there. But at this point, the construction budget, if you will, Brian has put together a cost estimate with all the elements of the middle blue route, Stagecoach Rise with the retaining walls, et cetera, and that's about a $4.5 million construction budget. He has a contingency in that budget of about 10%. So that's how we get to that $5 million number. So right now, I would tell you that we would be with those estimates on budget.
Thank you.
CM Lindley.
Thanks, Mayor. Couple of quick questions. The 386 that's been spent to date, where did that come from? Was that city or was that from the grant?
Currently, that is city funds. We haven't requested the reimbursement for any of that at this point. So we haven't technically spent federal dollars at this point.
Okay, got it. And then the other question was when you talked about bidding over multiple seasons, can you explain that again?
Yeah. So the technique there would be to say, if we had a road project where we said, oh my gosh, we can't have the road closed for more than 3 days, and we constrain the construction duration, we're going to pay a premium for that. The trail, we have some flexibility on potentially how long we have a construction period, which opens up there's less pressure. We may get more bidders that can fit it into their schedule. It's about flexibility for, hopefully a lower cost.
Got it. Thanks.
CM Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. So halfway through this, you realize all of a sudden I don't have enough money. Is there a drop dead point where we say, boy, we need to come up with 200 or 300 more thousand or what? I mean, that could happen.
Every project, I would tell you, has a pull the plug moment. To be blunt, I think the next data point for this project would be, receiving bids. If for some reason that they were, you know, crazy or something. I mean, that's not the strangest thing that's ever happened, but that would be the next opportunity for that. And at that point, I guess worst case, we would have burned through the design money, but no construction money.
Sam O'Donnell.
Thank you. A number of questions. Going back to the map of the blue line right there, from the top where the blue line starts the switchbacks until it ends, how much of a distance is that? Looks like it's only about 30 feet. You see what I mean?
The question is from top of the switchbacks.
From where the blue line starts going off to the right and to where it straightens out again.
Oh, like the width of those?
No. From that point, go straight north to that point.
Oh, yeah. I'll let Brian answer that question.
I guess I would guess about 150 feet.
Oh, it doesn't look like that from my knowledge. Okay, so is that totally insurmountable? I mean, is there a sheer drop off right there? You see, you talk about grades. It goes from what grade to what grade?
In the existing condition, you mean?
No, I mean, is it doable? What I'm saying is, why is that elaborate switchback network, why is that absolutely necessary for the usefulness of the trail?
Yeah, so it's a matter of the amount of elevation you need to climb relative to the distance you have to do it. And you see that in the incline of regret, that 20% grade. You're trying to climb that over that whole distance. And so what you get using the switchbacks is you get almost double the actual linear length of trail. You're just bunching it all up into one area, right? And so that's where you go from a 20% grade to an 8.5% grade. That answer?
Well, I was looking at, and I'm not an engineer, so I don't know, but looking at the balance of the cost of having the switchbacks, which are a convenience, or is it an absolute necessity? That's what I'm trying to figure out. If money can be saved, and then, as Councilman Boyette talked about, the issue is money.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another thing. How much, you said the $386,000 you haven't asked for reimbursement from the city for. How much do you feel that the city needs to contribute in addition to what's already been?
Yeah, a great question. I think the round numbers, not getting to that first slide, is about, so if we go build the whole project and let's say it's $4.7 million, the city contribution to that would be about $750,000. I have that in the first slide there. It's the 543 plus 743.
That's
all in.
What you don't have, that's additional money.
That's budgeted money in fiscal year FY26, so that's already, if you will, in the bank. We have not spent that money.
I don't understand the answer to that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, we have CM Shaw, then CM Neese.
Okay, one very easy practical question, which is these switchbacks, I imagine people are coming down them on bikes. Is that what the landings are for? So you have enough room to turn around and, okay.
Correct.
Both of you are nodding, so that's great. And then I just wanted to offer a comment, which is some words of encouragement. I'm so impressed you've been able to engineer this and have a plan to do this in budget, because I was pretty nervous that wasn't going to happen. And I think you're getting the tone here that obviously the city doesn't have millions more to throw into this. So I think you've done a really great job. And I'm excited to see this move forward. So please keep working on it. And thank you for the work you've done so far.
CM Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question on the, you said you had some complaints about some of the people where the trail be above that. Are you planning on doing anything to screen the trail from those houses?
Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, that's an excellent question. We have talked about potentially, for some of that, we have sort of a split rail fence. We've talked about potentially bidding an alternate for more of a screening fence. I wouldn't want to promise to council that we can afford that, but that's something we are considering for certain pieces there.
I would, just to let you know, I would speak against having to do any type of screening of that. I mean, the whole idea of having trails like this is making sure you have eyes on trails. We have a situation up on the heights where everyone has a 6-foot fence that's you can't see through it, and the kids are afraid to go walk on the trails to school because people are hanging out there. And so, and I've talked about this before, when we create trails that are not along streets or things like that, we have got to make sure residents and people who are abutting up to them, that their fences are transparent enough so that they can see what's going on the trails, and we don't create these danger zones in the city like we've done before. So I would hope that I understand the residents' complaint against that type of thing. That's always a bummer when you have something in your backyard, but unfortunately this is parkland that's going to be developed, and the city has approved this to be done. So I would encourage us to continue to keep that SEPTED principle in place to keep eyes on the street. I'm also very concerned about the budget. If we're just now considering the fact that we may be at budget, I look forward to hearing when these bids come in to make sure we are at budget, because I don't think we need to be putting more money into this trail. And I'm also thankful to hear, and I'd like to know what kind of trail maintenance has been talked about as far as supporting this from this the trail group, the Stagecoach Trail group that came tonight. And you don't have to hear about it tonight, but in the future, I'd like to hear about what that's all about. Thank you.
Steve McGarry.
Yes, thank you for all the work you're putting into this. I think this is a really great vision and a great attribute to our trail system. My one question is, do you anticipate any issues with skateboarders or kamikaze dirt bikers on the switchback portion of the trail?
Yes, and to some extent, you can only control what you can control, and there's a user discretion. We can, introduce signage, warning signage, some reflectors at the bottom. But at the bottom, my perception of is that risk is going to exist on any of these options, right? They're all fairly steep, and one of them's extremely steep. Now you've just introduced a number of additional switchbacks. Whether or not the risk is any less because of the number of them, I don't necessarily believe so. You take it, for example, the yellow one, the incline of regret. There's only a single switchback in that case, but you let off the brakes on a bike on that, by the time you get to the bottom, you're going to be screaming. So, in my opinion, the switchbacks probably are the safer option, because they're going to force people to pay attention and know that they need to stay slow, and they're going to have to turn multiple times. So, but is there any data or anything I could back that up with? So.
CM Pittman.
So I just want to say, I'm impressed. This has been the hardest part of trying to figure out how to get people from the top of the rims down. We've done everything from tunnels to bridges to a lot of different options to actually see something that's fairly realistic as far as getting people from the top to the bottom is pretty impressive. I remember there used to be a lady in Billings who jogged up Zimmerman Trail and just scared the bejeebus out of me every time I saw her trying to jog up Zimmerman Trail. But what I want to ask is, this is kind of just to get from the top to the bottom. So I'm not sure why we're focused too much on a parking lot at the bottom. I don't see a lot of people parking down there to do this trail. They're literally going from somewhere else in the city to the top, or from the top down. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time on a parking lot or trying to get into the neighborhoods. I just don't see that as the purpose of this trail. And my other question, as far as money goes, so the city's investment is the 543, is that right? And we've spent the 386. So really, we've got another 157,000, and our portion is covered already. Is that right?
Councilmember Pittman, the city's commitment, which I'm going to sum total on the slide there, it's the 543 plus the 100 plus the 100. That would be the match money. Okay. So there's three sources of the match money. total for 743.
So the 157 is really what we have left as far as our obligation into it?
The difference would be 743 minus the 386.
Okay.
So 3 something
okay.
left of city funds to spend. If
Councilman Espenlater?
Thanks, Mac, and my questions are along that line. So what's the total engineering contract to get to bid? Not including CA. I know the total engineering contract was somewhere around $760 or something $1,000, which is legitimate for a project this challenging. Did that include the construction administration associated with that, or was that just the design portion of that
the
contract?
design amount is 788,000 and change, and that does not include the CA amount.
Okay.
Now I'll tell you as a follow up, we've looked at that. We don't think that piece is anywhere near the design budget.
Okay. The second part of that is so when I think you answered my question, but I want to confirm, to get through the design budget to bid documents, we're going to use the full trail stewardship dollars and the full trail net dollars and our full budget basically to get 2 bid documents. Is that accurate? Okay. Are we applying for any level of reimbursement from the TA grant from MDT associated with the design?
We sure can. We haven't got to that stage. We haven't done that yet because we've only been up to the 30%. But we could start to work that leverage, if you will.
If we get to the point of getting bid documents and we find out this comes in over budget and we can't get across the finish line, if we access the TA dollars, we can't get it built. Are we responsible for reimbursing MDT for the TA dollars if we don't get to a construction project?
Yeah, great question, Councilmember Aspenleiter and Mayor and Council. We have had those conversations, kind of these doomsday nuclear options with MDT. Like, what if that, what if the bid comes in at let's just say $12 million, and that's not even in the realm. We've talked to them, so we have some other levers that we can pull. We could shorten the trail up. I have a slide if council is interested to bring things more in line with budget. As long as we're building a substantial portion of that, they would still work with the reimbursement. We've had those conversations. If we completely pulled the plug and had spent some of that money and we don't build anything, yes, we would need to reimburse some of those funds.
CM Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, this was a work session. You're always saying that the staff needs direction. Do we need to pick one of these 3 routes and say this is the direction we'd like them to go, or Mac, what do you think?
It's not necessary, but unless you said we are not going with the recommended, forget the name. Who said an engineer couldn't be creative and have a sense of humor? So thanks. Stagecoach Rise. I mean, if the majority of this body was like, we don't want to do that, we're going to go the incline of regret, then it would be helpful to have a motion to that effect so that we knew that was your position. I think something that's different than where we're going, we'd like clarity on. If you're comfortable with how we're going and that's the nods we get, we're going to keep going down that path and don't need you to take action or pass a motion of some sort.
All right. Well, I would say that the sign at the top of the hill for the yellow should be the decline of doom if you're on a bicycle. Councilman O'Donnell.
Thank you. Just one other question. The $4.8 million grant, does that have a termination date to it, use it or lose it?
Great question, Councilmember O'Donnell. My memory is poor on that. I think there is an end date. I know that money is sort of obligated and we have some flexibility, but I want to say out in like 2028, but I could follow up with if there is a
Thank you.
a hard drop dead date on that.
All right. Any other questions for me? Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, Mac. The one question I have, you've talked about on Councilman Espelander's questions, but the one thing that came out to me is if there's not enough money to construct this, you could cut it back. How would you do that?
Yeah,
You
great.
just showed us
Yeah,
this
yeah.
project, so I would just like to know that.
Councilmember Kennedy, Mayor and Council, I have a cheat sheet slide here that. So, from a savings standpoint, there's the piece of the trail that would go from Rimrock Road, basically right to, this is where Brayton Avenue stubs north. So we, if we were to have this potential budget issue, one of the savings options might be just to shorten the trail, and there are some retaining walls along that Zimmerman Trail section, so that would cut out about 300,000. I'm rounding down, but that's the round number.
So you could get people from the top to the bottom.
So I can still get people from the top to the bottom and kind of achieve the objective.
Thank you.
Would an alternative, if you get stuck in the budget, be for private fundraising? Is that still possible?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Sam Nicholson.
I've actually bicycled down the Zimmerman Trail and up Zimmerman Trail, and it's terrifying right now with the traffic there. So even though there may be some terrifying switchbacks, I think they'd be better than what we have now.
All right. Anything else for our presenters? Any feedback you'd like to provide or direction?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Councilmember Bernice, thank you. I'm a little concerned as we had this discussion that we may have to pay funds back if for some reason this project is put on hold or until we get private fundraising to make sure we're not having to repay some of this money if we find out the bids are in place. And so I would ask the staff, maybe ask direct the staff not to spend any potential TA funds until we know what the bids are. I guess that would be a direction to Chris to make sure staff's not spending potential TA funds that we may have to repay if for some reason the bid's not coming way too high. If there's no second, it'll die, but that would be my only direction I can think of, because I'm concerned about those bids coming in high and we spending funds that are having to be repaid then.
Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, I think we can look into that. I just want to make sure there's not some technicality in our grant agreement that wouldn't allow for that, but we can sure look into that strategy.
All right. Anything else? Thank you, gentlemen. Great job. I guess we'll move on to item number 2, Montana Avenue update. And you're back, Mr. Fogelsong.
While they're pulling that up, I thought it would be inspirational, though, on that steep incline. Maybe we can have a future Olympian out of Billings go up faster than the Norwegian who clipped at 6.5 miles an hour up that hill last week that we all saw. So that could be inspirational for our kids.
Or we could do a work session while we're walking up.
It would be a...
Mr. Kennedy wants to zoom in on that meeting.
You make that a requirement of the self-funded health plan members?
All right, Mayor and Council. Second update tonight is on Montana Avenue. With me here is Sarah Plath, one of our staff engineers, and she was kind of the brains behind the two-way conversion this summer during construction. If you saw her out in her highlighted vest running around organizing traffic signals and rip the Band-Aid off to two-way traffic, there's the star of the downtown two-way. What folks don't probably remember, we still had a piece of a scope of the work as part of that project that was looking at Montana Avenue. And that is also coupled, the state of Montana is going to be doing a chip seal on Montana Avenue. So we looked at, okay, at the same time, is there a way to achieve some objectives in the road diet? So I wanted to update you on that process and progress. And then we have some recommendations going forward here that we want to talk about. So just recalling that the Montana Avenue road diet, we've talked about that as a community since 2004 in terms of traffic calming. We did some additional traffic study work with the two-way conversion project, and the figure there shows that south lane is underutilized. So from a traffic perspective, we could do a road diet. And so some of the things going on right now, MDT is proposing their chip seal project. Some of that sidewalk, as you know, in front of the businesses is kind of chipped up. They're going to be replacing some of that, a few curb fix spots. They'll be replacing those crosswalks. So we're working with MDT to how do we make those a little bit more visible. And then obviously recently on the city side, we added those flashing beacons to the 5 crossings with the help of the TIF money. And so what are some of the road diet options? And many of you are going to smile. I just want to present this to kind of understand what the process that we've been through. I'm going to mention back in angle parking, Councilmember Kennedy is going to look at me, and he did. So we looked at that as that was the primary option 3 or 4 years ago. You have to look at history a little bit here. And so we've talked more about that with MDT, and kind of from a practical standpoint, they would prefer that on the south side of the road. So the community doesn't like back in angle parking. It would be on the south side, which is not the size of businesses. So we're saying not recommended. So we also looked at a pull-in angle parking, kind of like we have on Broadway with the two-way. And I highlighted in bold here, we don't have any other roadways, and we spent a lot of time looking at this, that have angle parking that have volume like Montana. We have about, correct me, 10,000 cars a day on Montana. For comparison, Broadway has about 2,000, so 5 times more on the volume side, and the speeds are quite a bit higher. So we are not, as sort of city engineers, comfortable with that scenario right now. We also looked at, hey, is there a way to stripe out some of the space there and do kind of a parallel parking with only signing and striping? And we don't know that folks would follow that. It doesn't physically change the characteristics of the road. So once again, we're not recommending that. So kind of going back to what was talked about in 2004, the way we might achieve an angle parking situation is to really physically change the road widths. But to do that, we'd have to spend a fair amount of money, curb bulb outs, potentially even moving some of the curb lines in to where people don't feel comfortable, traveling at a high rate of speed. So at this point, what we're talking about, and we're in close discussions with MTT, and that is supporting their current project, but probably looking at a heavy-duty traffic calming solution, with curb extensions, maybe it's sidewalk widening, maybe it's raised intersections, but to kind of hatch a future CIP project and really define that moving down the board. We're having a tough time, trying to get the results we want with just signing and striping with the current MDT project. So we wanted to give you an update on that project. And that kind of puts the bow, if you will, on the two-way conversion project.
Thank you, Mr. Engineer. Do we have questions or feedback for Mr. O'Donnell?
Thank you. One is that your report said that the average rate of speed is between 32 and 38 miles an hour, I think. Having been on that street a lot, I just wanted to give my own personal opinion. It doesn't seem to be that the traffic is excessive, you know, when I'm trying to park and whatever like that. You just have to watch out for it. But the other thing is that I wish that you would pass on to the state that the stripes across the road that are the bricks, I think that's really cool, and I think that should be incorporated in part of their revision to that street. Thank you.
Councilmember Nicholson?
Apparently, there's no way to make this a two-way street, or am I missing something?
Councilmember Nicholson, that's another probably conversation for another council meeting. Is there any way potentially? But there's another that concept came up maybe 2 years ago, and that's kind of what launched us a little bit into our transportation corridor study. So I'm going to say for tonight, probably no, but that is a concept that's out there long range.
That seems like the way to narrow things down so people will go slower.
Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. Do we, just to make sure I understand this correctly, so we're going to go ahead and just have MDT repave this. They're definitely not going to put angle parking in at all, whether it's front or back. And you said they may do some ball outs and stuff like that. Are you saying that, are they going to do them like you're showing on whatever slide it was, slide 6? Or are you saying that we're going to come back with a whole new concept of what they're going to do?
So with respect to the curb bulb outs, yeah, no curb bulb outs and extensions with the MDT project. We are, however, we're working with MDT closely at kind of following up on Councilmember O'Donnell's question, and that is how do we make those intersection crossings pop in addition to the flashing beacons? So we are working with them on what's the best way to do that.
Okay. And no option to close that third lane?
Not through all of our analysis at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. If all they're going to do is kind of repave it, is that what I understand? And maybe put in something with the crossings. That sounds fine to me.
That's correct.
Councilmember Aspenleiter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councilman Nicholson's question about converting this to two-way. So I think it was 18 months ago or so, we had that conversation. There was a potential resolution to do a study based on that. The thing to understand is this is an MDT route. If we functionally change the operation of this section of Montana, we may lose the designation from MDT, which then makes it our road and our full financial responsibility. So we lose the MDT funding if we change it to a point in which it does not function the same way that it's classified by MDT. It essentially then becomes an arterial road at best, probably a collector road, and then we lose access to MDT funding on Montana Avenue. That is the trade-off. You can talk about doing a two-way conversion, but then we own that entire road forever. Amen. And that's likely not the best option for us to do, which is why I've pushed back very hard about two-way conversion on Montana Avenue. And the volumes of traffic down there at 10,000 cars two-way would definitely have an impact on access to the heights and the people that travel from Montana up Exposition into the heights. Not a great idea, and MDT would push back very hard if we were to have that conversation.
Anyone else? Councilmember Kennedy.
Mac, I just want to say thank you. Senior citizens and myself do not like backup parking, so thank you very much for taking that out.
All right. Thank you both. Did great. Item number 3, proposed building permit fees. You want to tee it up, Mr. K?
Yes, so Ms. Foust, who runs the building division, brought to administration, to Kevin and I, an idea of reducing the actual fee structure relative to the building permits. One of the things that helped open up this opportunity for over a decade, I want to say, Billings, along with the other cities and towns of Montana, worked to get legislative changes so that the building division could have more than just 1 year of reserve, even though that 1 year may seem like a big number. And in some respects it is. When you do a project like the hospital project right now and you pay that fee, and that fee is very large up front, and you're going to inspect over the next 3 to 5 years, you know, it's not as simple as our standard budgeting process. But to cut to where we are tonight, Jessica is going to talk to you guys about an idea to reduce the cost ultimately on the building community relative to this. So appreciate her work, the work of the department, and this is a part of a follow-up, frankly, from a conversation we had 12, 18, 24 months ago. One of the things that in the short term added cost to the development process was street lighting in neighborhoods. Now, I'm still a strong advocate that street lighting in neighborhoods, which is a CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design best practice, is a money saver because fewer criminals don't like the light. One of the things that the council said was, please come back to us with some ways that we're trying to find a way to lessen the impact on the development community. So this is one of those areas. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jessica to talk to you about the ideas that they have to reduce the actual percentage and ultimately the fees, several of the fees for the building department and the building industry.
All right, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be here. I'm Jessica Foust. I'm the building official for the City of Billings, and I'm here to talk about a proposed resolution to update our permit fees. Hopefully this will be brief, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to get the proposal or the proposed resolution in front of you so that if you had any questions, we could address them tonight. This is on the agenda for next week for adoption. So our current resolution was adopted June 13th of 2011. It increased fees at that time about 2% from the previous resolution. Building permit fees are a function of the project valuation. So as valuations go up, our permit fees go up. So that's why we haven't seen a new resolution in the past 14, 15 years, is because as inflation goes up and our cost of services go up, they kind of have been staying mostly in line until you'll see over the last few years. So some of our fees are flat fees, especially things that are per unit or per fixture, like mechanical. We do have a commercial plan review fee that's 65% on top of the permit cost, and we don't have a residential plan review fee. So why change the resolution? So our revenues produced by the current fees are outpacing the division's expenses. We don't have any large expenses anticipated. We did have some capital costs with the remodel of City Hall, and we also made a large purchase a couple years ago for new software, but we don't have anything coming up. So we would like to reduce our reserve to 10 to 12 months. Right now it's at about 22 months because, like I talked about, the fees are a function of project value. As construction increases, the fees increase proportionately. So the proposed resolution will simplify and streamline certain permit types. They'll separate fire systems permits into their own category and eliminate revision and deferred submittal fees. So here's an overview of our revenues and expenses over the last 6 fiscal years. You can see in FY20, we collected 30% more in revenues than what our expenses were. We had 22% in FY21, 39% in 22, and then you'll see 23, 24, 25 was kind of a correction years, if we want to call it that. And then this year in FY26, we're projected to collect about 44% more than our expenses. So this is something we talked about last spring with budget, is how do we bring our reserves down and have our revenues be more in line with our expenses. So overall, over those last 6 fiscal years, we're looking at about 17% more that we have collected in revenues than our expenses. And then coming into FY20, we had about a 12-month reserve at that point. So we've just added to it. So the proposed resolution will reduce building permit fees between 23 and 31%. Mechanical fees, we simplified, streamlined those. The fire system fees are reduced to flat fees based on valuation. We didn't have a specific line item for fire system fees in the previous resolution, and so they were being charged out at the building permit fee calculation, which wasn't really accurate, wasn't really where it should have been. So we corrected that. Our commercial plan review fee, we're proposing reducing it from 65 to 60%. We will continue with no residential plan review fee, and we will not have any resubmittal, revision, or deferred submittal fees for permits. Our hourly rate, we did increase it from 45 to 75, and the reason being our previous resolution said $45 or the cost to the department for labor, overhead, yada, yada, yada. So we decided to take out that part, just make it 75 and call that good. So I wanted to show a couple examples of what fees would be with the new fee schedule. So if we have a $350,000 single family house, and this is based on the valuation of the house only. So it's labor and materials, it doesn't include land costs. So currently a building permit fee for that valuation of house would be just over $1,500. Our proposed building permit fee would be $1,154. So that's a reduction of 25%. And then looking at a $2.5 million commercial building, right now the permit fee and plan review fee together, they would pay just over $11,000. Our proposed fees would bring that down to $8,246, which is just over a 25% reduction. I do want to note, this is a big caveat. These examples are for building division permit and plan review fees only. Additional permits, plan reviews, system development fees from other departments may also be due at permit issuance and are not included in this resolution. So the permit holders are not going to see a 25% reduction in the entirety that they pay at permit issuance. It'll just be the line item that covers the building permit portion. So I did want to take a look at other cities in Montana and see how we're comparing. And as you'll see, we have much lower permit fees than Bozeman, Great Falls, and Missoula. So I looked at that same $350,000 single family home in those other communities and how much their permits would be. All of them do have a plan review fee on residential. Bozeman is 65, Great Falls is 50%, and Missoula is 30%. And then they also have the plan review fees on commercial as well. So next steps, as I mentioned, the proposed resolution is on the agenda for public hearing and adoption next week. If adopted, the new fees would go into effect on or after March 2nd with our implementation of the new permitting software. I just don't want to promise March 2nd because it is new software. And while we're hopeful we can get those fees incorporated, it may be shortly thereafter. And then we do anticipate that this reduction in fees will draw down, like I said, from about a 22-month reserve where we're at now to a 10 to 12-month reserve over the next couple of years. We'll review each budget cycle to determine if fees need to be adjusted up or down accordingly. And with that, I will take any questions.
Oh my, everybody's got jumping. So we'll start at the end and work our way back. Mr. O'Donnell's first. Mr.
Thank you.
Boyette second.
The chart, I didn't see numbers on the charts right there. The anticipated revenues over expenses.
Anticipated?
The one prior to that, prior. Oh, one more. That one right there.
Yes.
It says from 25 to 26 projected from 3 million to 4.7 million. Is that based upon you're anticipating a building boom in Billings? That's a huge amount of revenue.
Sure.
increase.
So Councilmember O'Donnell, as City Administrator Kukulski mentioned, the hospital project has been a huge revenue source for us over the last 6 months. So that does include the permit fees we collected for the hospital.
So, I mean, that would continue? We
So
still get
we're already
revenue from that?
No, so we're already 7 months into FY26. So based on what we've collected so far, and then what we anticipate for the rest of this year until June 30th,
Okay.
that's about where we feel we'll end up.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Boyette?
Thank you. Jessica, does this take into account that we may need more hired hands down the road? What happens if we do that? I mean, the same people can't continue to do the same amount of work. Maybe you'll have to add some people down the road. How does that work into it?
Sure. So Councilmember Boyette, that's a good question. This is taking that into account. We've already hired an additional building inspector that got approved last fiscal year. And again, as valuations continue to increase, our fees would still increase proportionately. But the only way to draw down our reserves is to significantly reduce our revenues for now. That's why I said in the future, we may need to come back in another couple of years and increase them to stabilize, because really the only way to draw down the reserves is to significantly reduce our revenues.
Okay. Mr. Aspenleiter?
Question and comment. I'll make my comment first. Like, I presume that you've been talking with the building community, both the commercial side and the Home Builders Association. This is going to be welcome news to the building community, kind of to the city administrator's point. But don't just put this in place and then pretend like everybody's going to recognize that we did the right thing here. Like, take a victory lap, please. Remind those folks that we followed through on what we said we were going to do in reducing costs, because we're not going to get there. Nobody's going to go out of their way to say, oh yeah, well, I remember that you reduced our building permit fees. So please do that, because that was an important part of some of the things we did last year, was promising that, hey, we were going to look at some other ways, and we're not done yet. This is a really great step forward in that effort. But those folks need to be reminded a couple of times along the way here. So that's my comment. My question, the resolution, and I don't want to get into the weeds necessarily, but in section 4 under the mechanical permit fees and in the staff memo that you sent, a copy of the resolution, the thing that jumped out at me is we have permit fees for repair and replacement of things like a bathroom exhaust fan. So if I'm replacing the exhaust fan in my house, in my bathroom, am I supposed to come down and get a permit fee, a permit from you for and pay a $5 fee to replace my exhaust fan? Like, are we getting that deep in the weeds on this?
Well, Councilmember Aspenleiter, we do enforce the codes that the state adopts, which includes the mechanical code, which includes replacement and repair of exhaust fans. So, and it would be it would be a minimum charge. It'd be the $20 plus the $5. It'd be $25, and that ensures that, or you could also get an inspection to make sure it was installed correctly.
So that's state law. You're saying that
I've replaced an air conditioner and an exhaust fan, and I've never got a permit fee. And frankly, I don't intend to ever get one to replace my own exhaust fan. So I guess if you want to write me a ticket,
well, you
can go ahead and do that. But the ridiculousness of that part, and I understand you got to enforce state code. Nobody is going to do that. And we're going to lose our rear ends trying to process a $10 fee for Blanche on Broadwater, having a handyman replace her exhaust fan and paying $25 and then getting it. Like, that's absolutely nonsensical. So I don't even encourage our public to do that for simple home repair projects. So I just wanted clarification on that. That's a state thing. I get it. It's ridiculous, but not your issue.
Anything else? Ms. Aguirre?
Thank you. So being wet behind the ears still, I'm still learning about a lot of things. But can you help me understand what precipitated this change? Like, was it a promise or was somebody complaining too much? Can you help me understand that?
So, Councilmember Gary, this was a conversation we had. Well, there's been a few different conversations. We had some meetings with developers last year, and we did make a commitment to look at ways that we could lower costs for development in Billings. No promises to actually reduce fees, but we said we'd take a look at it and see. Then when we were in budget season last year, we had seen this trend of the expectation that in FY26 our expenses were going to far outpace our revenues were going to far outpace our expenses. And so there was conversation at that time about reducing our reserve amount proportionally.
Follow up? Yeah. So this is a potentially temporary shift?
Correct. So like I said, to bring it back into line, we have to significantly reduce. That doesn't mean in 3 or 4 years we might come back and say, okay, now we've stabilized it, and now we have to bump them up a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pittman?
So this is just a follow-up to what Councilmember Aspenleiter said. I think you need to spike the football. It's hard to get the press to say we reduced costs and made it more affordable to do business, but that one slide that shows that bring your business to Billings, we're here to help, should be the headline on every paper this week, because it rarely happens in government. And so to take a responsible approach and say, we're exceeding our revenues, we need to cut it back is something that definitely, I think, the word needs to get out there, whether it be the Builders Association, the Chamber, it should be the headlines everywhere. So thank you.
Jim Nicholson?
Yeah, this is going to be a simple question with a hopelessly complicated answer, I suppose. What's the turnaround time from the time someone makes an application to the time they get the permit? And will this affect that?
Councilmember Nicholson, this will not affect it. We're keeping staffing levels as they are. Right now, we do residential reviews. The first review is done within a week, so 5 business days. Our new commercial buildings are about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the complication, much more close to that 4-week turnaround for first review. And interior remodels, so like tenant improvements on commercial projects, are about 2 weeks.
Go ahead.
And any idea how that compares with the People's Republic of Missoula?
I have heard anecdotally that that our review times are much quicker than theirs.
Councilmember Neese has been up for a while, and then Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. Jessica, you mentioned you're going to change your labor rate to a fixed fee of $75, which is probably more appropriate. But are you going to look at that every single year and make sure that doesn't get stagnant? Because I think you said, how many years has it been since the last time we reviewed this process?
It's been about 15 years.
Yeah, and so I hate to see us, 15 years later now find out our labor rate 75 when it's probably 150 or more. Is there anything you can either build, have a caveat to saying it's going to be $15 or whatever the standard labor rate is, the average labor rate or something like that, versus, or are you planning on bringing this back every year to make sure the labor rate is adjusted correctly?
Sure. So Councilmember Neese, that $75 labor rate, it's only for things that fall outside of other permit costs. So sometimes we have an unusual situation. We need to do an additional inspection. There might be inspections that are outside normal business hours for whatever reason. That's when we charge that rate. It's done very infrequently. So I'm not too concerned about it. But if that's a direction from council, we certainly could look at adjusting it up every year as we go through our budget process or something like that.
I mean, I think it's just a simple thing to make sure it stays in line with whatever your costs are. And I'm not directing you to do that, but I think it just makes sense to make sure that doesn't get lost down the road. I did have a question about the effective date. I believe it's effective upon we approve this. So that's going to be when? Is that going to be during the budget cycle, or is that going to be earlier than that?
It would be earlier than the new fiscal year.
Okay, and when do you think this will take effect?
Councilmember Neese, we'd hope March 2nd with our new software rollout.
Okay, thank you for bringing that software rollout. And so March 2nd, that's when it's going to be rolling out. Is this a pretty typical busy time of year for for people to start building and things like that?
Councilmember Neese, we do typically see an uptick of submittals at this time for projects that are starting in the spring.
Okay, and I just want to, we don't want to get ourselves into a situation where the software doesn't work and we don't have a backup. So if the software for some reason is not working, you still have a process that you can continue to keep the building moving?
Yes, Councilmember Neese, we still have our existing system. That's not going away. We could always fall back to what we do today if we needed to.
Thank you. Sorry to veer off track a little bit on that, but I appreciate that. And the only other thing I would like to suggest is, I agree with Councilmember Asplander. It's crazy that we have to have a state law that tells that we have to pay $5 plus a $20 fee to go and replace a bathroom fan. That's not the headlines I want to see. And I'm hoping that maybe the legislative committee take that up and get a legislator to work on that, to bring that some ability that the city or the state can make an exception. I think Jessica said there's possibilities the state can do that. They can choose not to adopt certain sections or do something to allow that to be a little bit more user friendly. So thank you.
Thank you, Neese. Sim Shaw.
I could not agree more that I want to see this on the news, headlines everywhere. But to that point, put it up on the website. But would you also make a little cheat sheet for council that has a lot of this information on it? Because the next time I hear somebody complaining about building fees, I would love to be able to hand them a paper saying, like, look how it compares to the other Montana cities. Look at what this reduction has been. Look at how your city is taking this seriously. Because I think it's important that we are all out there reminding people that this is a big deal, that you guys have proactively done this. And I don't want our community to forget it. So thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. Just one other question. Going back to that chart with the graph on it, the percent revenues are greater than expenses, 30, 22, 39, and then 4, and then minus 17 and minus 1. It looks like we were heading in the direction that revenues were not exceeding. So you said that you had the reserve of 22 months. Had that been growing, it would seem like that we're heading in the wrong direction. That this, I don't understand why you're having a reduction at this very same time revenues are decreasing precipitously.
Sure. So Councilmember O'Donnell, if you look at, like I said, coming into fiscal year 20, we had about a 1-year reserve at that time. And I didn't put the actual delta, the difference between the expenses and revenues, but every year that we are exceeding our expenses with our revenues, all that money is going into reserves. So each of those years that we were 30% above our expenses, 22%, 39%, every one of those years, that extra money, that's the delta between the expense and the revenue, that is going into reserves. So even though we had a couple, quote, down years, we still had that reserve in place. So really, like in FY24, we only, I would say, spent down the reserve about $400,000, $420,000, and that was the large cost for the software. So if we didn't have that software expense in 24, we would have been pretty close to even.
So, if I could just, I'm still trying to understand. So fiscal year 24 was 17%. Expenses were higher than revenues. So correct. This seems to be, I agree with Councilmember Shaw that this is wonderful, a reduction and exactly the right message to send to the building community, development community for the city. But it seems to me that we're going down and down and down. This is the inappropriate time to do that.
So Councilmember
Other than the hospital, is the hospital just simply bailing us out of this whole thing?
So Councilmember O'Donnell, I wouldn't say it's bailing out, because leading up to the hospital, we had several years of much higher revenues and expenses. And maybe if you look at the total on the far right, that would give you a better idea. So over this entire 6-7 fiscal years, our revenues were $3 million more than our expenses, if we look at that. So when we look at this graph, we gained $3 million over that time frame. Coming into FY20, we had over $3 million to start with, because we had a one-year reserve, or slightly over 1 year reserve. So we're talking about $6 million in reserves when we have a $3.3 million expense budget. So that's where it's about 22 months. So if tomorrow we got no permits and we had no permits coming in, no revenues coming in, we could sustain our operations for about 22 months, just on the money that we have currently.
All right. Anything else? Councilmember Nicholson.
What's the least it would cost to permit and inspect a small house home project like a bathroom ceiling fan, and could we just do those for free?
So Councilmember Nicholson, if there's things that we would want to provide for free, that could be a direction. There's nothing that we do provide for free without at least a minimum cost for a permit, but that could be a direction from council.
All right. I think that's it. We don't have anything else. We look forward to seeing you in a next meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Item number 4, a hearty discussion on the Babcock Theater.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. I do want to just introduce you to Tricia May. Most of you might not have had contact with her yet, but she's our new facilities manager for the last couple months. So she's jumping in head first and going to tackle the Babcock Theater discussion tonight. Tricia did come from us. She was a facilities specialist, working mainly with the fire department, but has great, preventative maintenance efforts, did facility condition audits, a lot of experience in budgeting and capital projects. So she brings a wealth of experience, not only from the city, but from her previous employment. So I'll let her kick it off, and she's going to look at me if there's something that I need to jump in here, since I've been involved with the Babcock since the city has taken it on. So with that, Tricia, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Council. We're going to talk about the Babcock Theater. The city took ownership of the Babcock in 2018. The art house was then the operator. May 2025, the ceiling collapsed, which is one of the reasons why we are here today. Babcock has not been operating since then. In December, the art house presented the city with an LOI to purchase the theater for $1, contingent on a $1.5 million in repairs. That was a discussion starter, and that's where we started. This is a picture of the ceiling collapse. As you can see, up above the balcony, the ceiling started falling from one side, and with the weight, it just tore it all the way off, hit the other side of the wall. This is the cost estimates of the ceiling repair only. So on the low side, we're looking at $938,000. On the high cost estimate, that's 1.17. Our house procured Cushing Terrell to do a condition assessment. They broke that assessment down into 3 priorities. This is the high priority or code deficiencies. On the low end, it's 1.4 million. On the high end, they're estimating 1.7 million. The moderate priority deferred maintenance items on the low side is 1.0 million, and on the high side, that's 1.3 million. And this is for the opportunities and future upgrades. In the staff memo, I did not put these numbers into the staff memo because these are upgrades that the art house could do in the future. Is not part of the deferred maintenance or code deficiencies. And there's our summary between the 3 different priorities. So on the low end for all 3, it's 3.5, and on the high end is 4.3. Cushing Terrell is proposing to do this in 3 different phases. Phase 1 would address the life safety and code compliance. Phase 2 would be the deferred maintenance and operational improvements. With the phase 3 is it enhancements and future remodel. At the time of the ceiling collapse, the city did not have liability insurance on the property. Art House had insurance. That insurance came back with a denial. The condo owner, who owns the condos up above the theater, did have insurance, and they did come back with an approval. With that approval came different categories. This is the scope of the damage that they will cover. The major cost drivers, which is the scaffolding, is one of the highest costs on that whole estimate. Electrical repairs is almost $13,000, and then for the fire suppression system is $11,000. I've learned a lot about insurance throughout this process, and these are a lot of numbers. We have a $100,000 deductible, and with that $100,000 deductible, the potential recovery would be $469,000. As Kevin always reminds me, that's like a 1 to 4. The key observations that was noted throughout the insurance was that the balcony seating needed to be replaced. As you saw from that ceiling, when it hit that balcony, all those chairs, it was like 320 chairs, I believe, that was damaged. And to date, from 2018 till 2025, at the time of the ceiling collapse, this is the how much money Art House has put into the facility. This does not include city funds. It's all from operation or, I apologize. It's all from funds earned through operations or donations. The letter of intent proposed a $1 cash price with several contingencies. One was a $1.5 million. The funding sources we are discussing, and the due diligence is 180 days. It's a non-binding LOI. Again, they presented that as a conversation starter. With the LOI, they also submitted a First Amendment to agreement lease, and that changes the responsibilities of the utilities over to us, the landlord. The taxes and assessments would be our responsibility, utilities, the insurance commencing March 1st. We did get a quote from our insurance provider, and that is $2,200 a year. I tried to present as many different options that we have with this discussion, and it is very overwhelming, but basically we broke it down into 3 different ones. One is an operational path that we keep the facility. We can invest the money ourselves into the facility, or we can what they call mothball it, shutter the doors, leave it as is. Another option is a negotiated sell. There's a lot of different legs we can go from there. I did in the staff memo put in 2 other facilities in the state that was significantly had high deferred maintenance, and it took several years to sell those. And then if we don't have a buyer, that brings another bunch of issues. The third option is a transfer to Art House, and Matt Blakeslee, the executive director for Art House, is here to answer those questions.
Well, I guess questions first.
Doing insurance companies are crazy, but is there a time frame that for this $100,000 deductible? Do we have to do that within a year or 2 years, or the policy is canceled? Just we need to. I mean, that would help to know that.
I'm just going to stand up here to make it easier and tag team with Tricia, and then if we do need to bring Matt up, we can bring him up. Normally, there is a time frame period on there that's in that 12-month range. We'd have to look at that exactly where that is running, and I don't know if Matt's got anything additional to that, but there normally is, yeah.
Anybody else? Council Member Lindley?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to, first of all, thanks for the presentation. That was great. That was a lot of information. You did a really good job presenting it briefly, so thank you. Yeah, I guess what I would say, to me, having the Babcock shuttered since May of 2025 is a big deal for the city. I know I've taken my kids there to watch the original Top Gun, Jurassic Park, Die Hard at Christmas time. And I know literally thousands of other people go there all the, when it was open. I think also looking at what the Babcock looks like the day before the ceiling collapse versus what it looked like when the city took it over is a drastic improvement, certainly due to the money that Art House put into the building. So, I think personally, the city, I guess this is my comment on the matter, which is I don't think it makes sense for the city to continue to be the owner of the building and all the liability. I think getting the Babcock Theater back up and running as it was before the ceiling collapse is very important. And I can certainly understand the pressure that was kind of put this in front of us from Art House, from the standpoint that, insurance companies are crazy. But to be sitting here where we are in, February of 2026 and just really trying to figure out even just the insurance part while day after day after day continues to go by without operating it, is obviously difficult when that was a big part of what Art House is. And just to be clear on the abatement, that Art House has continued to pay utility bills, even though they haven't been able to operate it. So, look, I think the more that we can, or as fast as we can kind of help get things operating, and figure out the final plan for the building, I think is the best case for everybody.
So, Mayor, if you would, what staff is looking for here tonight is what does the council want to do, for the foreseeable future with the Babcock? Is it just we're going to sell it as is, try to get out of it? We've got an exit plan to where the city won't own it, but maybe Art House would take it over. Is it to shutter it and not do anything with it? We've got a little bit of financial path, talking with Andy and our finance director. Very little. We've got money to cover the potential $100,000 deductible through either general reserve funds, or if you remember or recall, several months earlier that we were working on the marquee with some TIF money. There is some of that still left. That certainly could be redirected by council to cover a deductible or do something like that. And then looking at the bigger picture, if we wanted to tackle, the high priority code deficiency items, our mainly only path financially is the TIF funding with that. It does have capacity to potentially take this on if that's what council would want to decide, but we're just looking for direction. We've been kind of in this limbo stage at this point, and we need to, have some direction on where we want to go with this.
Thank you, Mr. Iflin. Councilmember Aspenleiter.
Yeah, and I guess to that point, and maybe this is where the conversation starts with Mr. Blakeslee, I can get to a point of paying the deductible and getting the place back up and operational with the caveat that we got to get rid of it. and we've got to work this deal out with Art House to get it off our books and transfer ownership to the folks that are taking care of it and operating it and benefiting from it. I can't get to the point of paying Art House $500,000 to take it, which is kind of what the proposal feels like. I can get the deductible. I can get to a point where we're using the deductible. I think we should use whatever was left over from the TIF allocation on the marquee, leverage the reserves for the remaining balance. It'd be nice to know what that roughly is, TIF versus reserves, and then making the transaction if Art House is willing to do that. There just is not another $500,000 anywhere to do that. I am hesitant to lean into the downtown TIF because this is not a tax increment generating facility. It's not. It's not going to contribute back to the increment unless Art House takes it in a for-profit private LLC operated by their nonprofit and pays the taxes that way. I understand that's not the preferable option from conversations with Mr. Blakesley, and I get that. But I'm going to have a hard time supporting leveraging more TIF dollars for the Babcock because it's not going to generate income to replace the TIF dollars that we use. So that's where I'm at to start this conversation, and I guess I'll end there until we have further discussion.
All right, in this order, Councilman Kennedy, then O'Donnell, then Neese.
I would go with option 3. I'm like Councilman Aspenlander. The 500,000 is a sticking point. The only place we can do is go out for TIF dollars. That's the only way we can do it. My point is the final outcome has to be that we have to sell the property. We have to get out of it. So I would say Art House has done a great job and they seem to be very interested. I would love to hear if their board is willing to take it on.
You want to do that now or should we go through the other questions? Come on up, Matt.
Mayor and Council, hello. I'm Matt Blixley. I'm the Executive Director of Art House. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and just kind of speak for our board and I think more significantly our members and donors and supporters. At the end of the day, I think to put it bluntly to the question of is Art House interested in purchasing the building, the answer is yes. We see that the work that we've done in the last 7 years and the lessons we've learned over there puts us as some of the best people on planet Earth to know what that space needs. And we believe in what that theater means for our community and our city as a whole and downtown. And so for us, this is, yes, that opportunity of, okay, I think we need to be willing to step up. So to the question, we are very interested in that. I think what got us here and what the next steps are, the question for us, that we're willing to do what we need to do and what we're able to do to make that theater not just reopen, but sing for generations to come is, the understanding and belief that I think all of you get at this point. And I just want to say thank you to those of you that took time to meet with me, walk through the theater, all of that. I know that you have a lot on your plate, so thank you. At the end of the day, our belief at Art House, the reason we were at the table was we believed that this was a partnership between the city and Art House. And at the end of the day, you guys are in the tough place that you are. There's just no resources, and we get that. So we would love to figure out how we can make that transfer happen. I think what I would ask is that we are prepared to put together a buy-sell to work with the city to start looking at what that looks like. We understand that $1.5 million was a starting point, and so that's not sticky for us, but we do see a path forward to start those conversations.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping to hear, that we can get started and get this thing ironed out. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Donnell?
Thank you. Yes, very informative meeting that I had with you on this. I learned a lot about this that I didn't know before. I want to just express my praise and admiration for Art House for wanting to take this on. I think that is a wonderful thing. for the reasons that you just mentioned. This is a landmark in Billings. It can provide a lot of service, and the fact that you're willing to do that is remarkable. As I expressed to you the other day, I think that as was said, we simply don't have the $500,000. But I think that a Save the Babcock campaign would be wildly successful in town. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to be clear. First of all, everything Councilmember Asperlander spoke of, I'm in support of. I just want to be clear. I don't see an option listed here that I'm agreeable with or in lines with what I think Councilmember Asperlander proposed. Option number 3, as Councilmember Kennedy supports, I believe indicates that we're going to pay them $500,000 on that. I don't want to see that. I think a dollar transfer on this, as is building, and we're out of it. And so I hope that's what we're looking towards, because this is something I brought up probably a year ago. Wanted to see this. I think our house does a great job on this. They have great supporters for what they're doing. And I did tour the facility. It was tragic to see the building and condition it was. But at the same time, I think they have a community that can support and bring this back to Billings in a fashion without government in the way of that. So that's the way I would support that. I think there's nothing else I really would want to talk about. I'll leave it the discussion to the rest of it. But that's my view of it. Hopefully we can move forward with that and soon on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Neese, then Shaw. So Councilmember Aguirre, then Shaw.
Hopefully we're not that interchangeable. First of all, my comment is that I believe that there's no outfit better suited to take on this building than Art House. I fully support transfer of the property to Art House. I think it makes sense for the city to foot the bill for the $100,000 deductible, since the city hasn't had any skin in the game over the last however many months since the ceiling collapsed. And in terms of the $500,000, I don't know how many, if any of us were on this council in 2019 behind the promise of another $500,000 that didn't transfer. But having said that, we all stand on the shoulders of those who made that promise. And I think it is our duty to fulfill a promise rather than turn our back on it. So to that end, is it feasible to consider that $500,000 to be distributed incrementally over a couple of years? Is that feasible?
Councilwoman Aguirre, thank you. That $500,000 is, I hope it's known. We haven't carried that on our back the last 7 years being at the Babcock. I think what we're trying to point out with that is, again, that understanding this was a partnership. It didn't end up happening the way that we thought. And so we felt like this was an opportunity to just be honest about that. We are, as we're very honored by the fact that thousands of people literally have donated, been a part of the Art House story, the Babcock story up to this point. And we see it, part of our due diligence is to make sure we're at least having conversations about what's been talked about in the past, what is available. I think what I would hope is heard tonight is anything the city is able to do and anything that we can discuss and negotiate that obviously everyone's comfortable with is a win for the Babcock. And that's why we're here. And that's what we're going to fight for. But we are not in a place to, say, no, we need it now, or we need it by this time, or anything like that. I think we are very interested, particularly in, working out this buy-sell to understand what that looks like. And wherever it ends to Art House's ability and capacity, we are in because we believe in that theater. So.
Okay. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. It seems to me like there's two decisions here. And so I want to express support for both. First is, I think absolutely the deductible, the utilities, get the theater operational. No matter what, we're going to have to do that, in my opinion. And so make that happen as soon as possible. I also would pick option number 3, but I think to Mr. Blakeslee's point, to the city's point, I think there's still a lot to be negotiated there to figure out what that would look like, how that transfer could happen. So I guess I would say I don't want to hold up one waiting on the other. I would say move forward, in my opinion, move forward with the deductible, getting it open, and then continue to have the conversations. I assume, I mean, council, you'd have to be back in front of council with a buy-sell for us to approve or not approve. And so take the time to work that out, I think, and then present it, because right now I don't think we have a clear idea of what we'd be voting on. But I would, in my opinion, head in that direction, come back to us in a few months.
I'll try to give you a summary once everybody's done.
Council Member Kennedy, then Council Member Nicholson.
Just to follow up, the proposed 500,000, the only place that it could come, and Mr. Iflin had said that, the only place it could come is from tax increment financing dollars. We don't have a pot of money at the city that we could do, and it could come over a period of years or whatever to help with the proposal. The bottom line is that I'm looking at option 3 is the city exits and the art house becomes the owner.
Okay. Councilmember Nicholson.
A couple things. One is this is such a good lesson in what happens when you defer maintenance. Second thing is we live in a great city where citizen groups step forward to make Billings a better place. And we've seen 2 examples of that this evening. And our house should be commended on stepping forward. The third thing is I would hate to see this just be a derelict hulk empty, and that would not be what Billings is about.
Agreed. Councilmember O'Donnell.
Yeah, one more thing briefly. I noticed that one of the line items was patching plaster. Is this more likely to be characterized as a repair budget or a restoration budget?
So most of the things that are on the basically the high priority code deficiencies, there are things that need to be done, have to be done. I mean, to occupy this building and make it any type of long-term sustainability in it.
Are they patching or replacing?
I don't recall the specific line item. I don't know if you do, Trish, but I mean, if it's on the ceiling, it's a repair of the entire ceiling, because the part of the ceiling that didn't come down needs to come down before we, start repairing that ceiling.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to have Councilmember Pittman and then Councilmember Neese.
So I would go with option 3 with the basis of this is a historical building. How the city got involved, and we just need to stop digging and get out of this. I mean, we're not standing to make millions of dollars in the future or something like that. So getting out of this, I think we can enter into some good faith negotiations that will get us to the end point of where everybody's satisfied, whether it be TIF dollars, whatever it takes. Certainly the $100,000 deductible. Not sure why we didn't have liability insurance ourselves on that. That's kind of a bad on us, but requires that we take some responsibility as well because of that. So I think going forward and getting this off of our plate and off of our responsibility, this has been a project that has been taking for decades. And I don't think it's our wheelhouse. I don't think that's what we're here to do. So I'm happy that you're willing to take this over and for the long term. So thank you.
Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure we're only talking about the one thing, which is the disposition of a property to their house, because that I'm fully in support of. When it comes to the lease amendments that we're proposing, I'm not in support of any of those amendments at all. And so the reason I don't want to see us changing the lease now. I would like to see us make sure that we move this forward, the disposition as quickly as possible. It shouldn't take a matter of a few months, if that, to get this completed. And so there's no need to change the lease agreement for when they're going to become the owners in a few months anyway. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Anybody else? Councilmember Lindley.
Thanks. I just figured might as well take my second chance here. Yeah, look, I wanted to just say, to be clear, since the ceiling collapsed and the city didn't have insurance, which led to a drawn-out insurance process. Art houses continued to pay utilities on a building that they couldn't operate. So I think for that reason, if a lease amendment is required to help with abatement of those, that's what I support.
So I think one last look, Mr. Iflin.
All right, so I'm gonna try to summarize kind of direction of where we will head, and then you can certainly modify, but from what I've been hearing, city's gonna participate in getting the ceiling repaired, back up to speed, so the building would technically be occupiable at that point, whether that means the deductible, there might be some other cost associated with that. On the lease, it's a little bit of conflict here between what Councilmember Neese and Councilmember Lindley said, but on the lease amendment, staff recommendation would that we do go forward with that lease amendment and basically abate the utilities. They're running about $3,000 a month. There's a reason why they're running that high, even though it's shuttered over there, that will need to be addressed at some point with the condo association, but that we would abate the basically the utilities, the assessments, and then we are going forward with insurance on that building and having this under the city's umbrella policy for that. So we just want to make sure that we're clear in direction of heading that way with the utilities on that lease amendment until the building is occupiable. And then, with that, we'll be working with Art House. Matt and I think, get along very well and have discussions all the time. We'll start working towards a negotiated sale of this, property. And then we'll be bringing you a disposal of property. We need a resolution to make that happen before PSA is brought to you.
Once you come to agreement, or at least once you understand the scope of all these expenses, do we get to say yes or no?
So we can tell you, and Matt can give you probably exactly about what utilities are running. I'm just going to ballpark it. It's $3,000 a month for utilities at this point, give or take.
Closer to 2 at this point. We've been able to get them down a little bit closer to 2.
Do we have the authority to do that in a work session, or does it need to go to a business meeting?
What would happen was would be accepting direction to staff to go and bring this lease amendment to you with those details in it, because it's an amendment to the lease that council would have to approve.
All right, thank you. Mr. Boyette and then Mr. Aspenleiter.
So $100,000 is our deductible. You're saying spend $100,000 plus, or just $100,000?
So to get the ceiling back up, and I don't know if Tricia can speak a little bit more towards this, but yeah, $100,000 deductible. And talking with Matt, there is some opportunity to partner with that, to get the ceiling basically, back repaired. So it might cost more than $100,000 to get that done. Yes, from the city.
Okay, can you tell us what that would be at some point?
At some point, yep. Right now, what we've got is insurance estimates. I don't know if we've gotten anything, concrete at this point on prices. We're hoping it's at the low end of what these Cushing-Terrell report came back at.
Mr. Aspenleiter.
Yeah, I guess I can support the lease amendment until it's back to on an occupiable state, and then transferring the utilities back over. I agree with Councilman Lindley. That's probably our good faith effort to get this back up. It's not a big cost. So as you laid it out, I guess I would agree with that position to move this forward.
Yeah, and where council would have touch points on this, obviously, would be the lease amendment would come back to you for your approval, and it would have, those details in it that we've talked about tonight. We'd probably have to come back to you at a point if we're using the current TIF funding, if we're going to kind of pivot that to, more go towards the ceiling rather than what it was originally approved for. So that might be another touch point. Another touch point is going to be a resolution to dispose of this property because it is city property. That will be another touch point for you. And then whatever negotiated purchase and sale agreement would come to you then for approval also. So you're going to have, 4+ touch points on this before it would be finalized.
All right, thanks. Listen, I don't see any other hands up. So your instructions are go forth and please save the Babcock.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Number 5, Montana Land Use Planning Act. Third. Does anybody need a break? Okay, we're going to take a break for 9 minutes. Be back here at 7:44.
Been acting kind of goofy tonight, so
I'll call us back to order because it is 7:44. Thank you for everybody being here. We're going to move on to agenda item number 5, Montana Land Use Planning Act, the Billings 2045 update. So take it away.
All right. Yes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anna Vickers and I are going to walk through some information for you tonight. This is a great opportunity, actually, timing wise, for us to give you an update. We had heard there were some inquiries, and I talked to one of Councilmember Neese about this about a week and a half ago to give you kind of an update on what's going on, and actually also what the Interim Planning Commission has been doing in their work regarding this, which is their duty as part of this process to bring ultimately recommendations to you. And so some of what we want to talk about at the end of this tonight is some housing incentive options that are in the code and that the IPC has worked through and made some initial, given some initial direction on that they would have been, or they will be recommending to you as well. So anyway, wanted to walk through and give you that update. I'll start us off here. So as you know, Billings 2045, that is the new land use plan, and it has a future land use map that goes with it per the Montana Land Use Planning Act that was enacted back in 2023. There's some big pieces of this, much more prescriptive and specific than in the past growth policy regulations that the state had in place. Housing is one of them, and we'll talk, like I said, about those housing incentives tonight, but that's a big piece of this. The communities that are subject to this have to be able to show how we are going to accommodate housing based on population projections going out the next 20 years. Local services and facilities both impact, and how do we provide the services we need for the growth that we're going to see. And we have a slide later on that gives you a little bit of that data that we have on our estimates through the process so far. Economic development, and then natural resources, environment, and hazards. Some of those are pretty standard from past growth policy statutes. But now, like I said, some of these are a little more specific and a little bit more boosted up from what the state is expecting communities to do in this process. As we go through, we get the Billings 2045 land use plan and future land use map in place. Following along with that, and this is also part of the new law, we will be needing to look at our subdivision regulations for updates to reflect the plan adoption, and also our zoning code for some updates following plan adoption. This is not meaning that we have to redo all of our subdivision regulations and redo all of our zoning regulations. It's specific and kind of, like very laser focused amendments and things that need to be changed as part of this process. One of them, which is the last bullet here, is the administrative review process, which is the new big piece of this new legislation, where many applications that currently now go through a variety of advisory boards and commissions before they come to you, would now will go through administrative review by staff following the adopted land use plan and map that you adopt. So we're following that, the community's following that, but it basically creates a quicker and more streamlined process for the development community, and also more certainty for both developers and people that live in Billings about what's going on based on the map. So good example here, we just have how things run now and how things would run. This is just taking a zoning application for illustration. Right now we have the applicant holding a neighborhood meeting, application is submitted to the planning division reviews, makes a recommendation to the zoning commission. The zoning commission conducts a hearing, makes a recommendation to you, and then you conduct a hearing and make the final decision. Under the new process, the applicant will submit their request. The request will be checked internally by staff to ensure alignment with the land use plan and the new map. We administratively make an initial determination that it is in alignment with the map and the plan. And then there is a 15 business day public comment period for the community. If comments provided, and we'll reevaluate those, and then again, ensuring that it meets the plan and the map, and then it's approved. There is a appeal process available that goes through the planning commission and then to you if there's an appeal after that point. But that would be the new process, and that's going to be true for multiple applications that we process now, zoning being significant and one of them. So looking at the...
I have a quick question on this. What we're doing is this whole process takes the council out of it, and it puts all the power into the administrator of planning. The question I have is, when we start getting the calls and people upset, and because administratively you've turned something down, they're going to say, we put you guys up there to make these decisions. And was the legislature understanding what they did when they put this together? Because this doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Councilmember Kennedy and Mayor and Council, so I guess a couple things to unpack there. So first, the authority is still entirely the council's authority because you have to approve the land use plan and the future land use map. That is the cornerstone of this process, and that is the way the state put this together with the legislation. The idea here is that the community and public participation is happening now, which it has been and will continue to provide input to develop that plan and map. You will adopt it, the council, and then we will use that and follow that to make those administrative decisions. So we are not making, if it doesn't, we can't deviate off and say, oh, well, yeah, we just don't like this one or whatever. We have to look at literally the plan you've adopted and the map you've adopted and say, yes, it meets those criteria. Yes, it can be approved administratively. So that is still the way it's set up. It's just front loaded with both public participation and then that council approval, and then we follow that that plan and map. The other thing I'll mention too is if someone comes in with a proposal, because you mentioned this in terms of something was turned down, if someone comes in with a proposal that doesn't meet the plan and the map, then yes, we would say, if you want to do your project, then you have to go back through the process similar to the old way of doing things, because we're now amending the plan and the map, and the council has to be the one that's making that action. So there's a couple of sort of checks and balances there in terms of what happens with that process. So just to kind of clarify how it's set up. But yeah, it's a different way of doing things, and it was specifically, it's very common actually in other states. It just hasn't been done in Montana, and so it's new to us and new for everyone.
I would just add one item here. So the reality is that Billings and the annexation area is a large area. We're going through this process. We have every intent to bring this to you as many times as we possibly can. This is not the last time you'll see us or the last time that you'll hear from us. We're going to do several work sessions regarding this, and there are several iterations where we're going to hammer down into neighborhood plans. For instance, I know some of you are aware of the West Billings plan and the Heights plans, and we'll give you updates on where they're at later on into the process. The act also calls for us to update this plan at minimum every 5 years. If we as a team are looking at this and hearing a lot from our constituents that we're unhappy, well, that's something that I feel like should be an interactive conversation with council. And we're looking at those instances. Maybe we're opening this plan back up before the 5 years is up. Maybe we're looking and seeing where we need to drill down in certain areas. I just want to let you know that those are possibilities that may happen in interactive conversations that we will still very much be open to having with council.
So looking at the project timeline, again, kind of giving you a roadmap here of where we are. Started last April, went through a big stakeholder engagement effort back last August. In November, and several of you attended some of the community meetings that we had during Community Planning Week in November, had our survey going, and we'll show you some results of that here in a little bit. Now we're in the stages of initial drafting of the plan documents, and our consultant team is working on that. We're looking at that, and then as I mentioned, and we'll talk about that here, some of the items like the housing incentives, the interim planning commission has also been specifically drilling into the last couple of meetings that they've had to help inform that as they make their recommendations and we move forward. In April, we'll be doing another community engagement process with the draft plan documents putting those back out, giving the community time to review them, doing some specific in-person meetings and engagement during that time to get feedback to say, hey, here's what we heard back in November and throughout the survey process. Here's what's been put together. Does this look like, we heard you and we're on the right track? We'll obviously be talking to you at that time as well. And then we move into, finalizing, getting those documents put together to get things ready to bring to you in terms of the adoption process. However, like Anna said, throughout this, we have this planned already. We've got intentions for some work sessions, potentially even some regular council meetings where we're going to need to be coming to you with components as we go. So we're not coming to you the week before the meeting and saying, oh yeah, here's the whole thing, let's get this done. We're going to be bringing some incremental pieces to you. And that's also how we're working with the Planning Commission, so that they also have that ability to make those, to do that review and make those recommendations to you. So that's kind of the lay of the land in terms of how it's planned out. I'm going to have Anna talk a little bit about the engagement to date, like we were just referencing. So
I guess before I start, I saw a couple people raise their hands and wanted to make sure that I didn't overstep.
No, I think we're okay. We're going to finish your presentation, and then we're going to pepper you with a million questions.
That's just fine. That's what we're here for. Should be an interactive conversation. So just as Wyeth was saying, we started some of this process back in August with stakeholder meetings. We identified 115 different stakeholders across the community and got 69 of them to engage. All of them were invited. Just some people can't make it. Some people were just not interested in attending. So we held 12 meetings over August 4th and 5th and took some of their impacts. And this would be people such as the County Public Works Department, the Parks Department, the Western Heritage Center, the Northwestern Energy, just various different community stakeholders that play parts in those different topics that Wyeth outlined, such as the infrastructure, the transportation and mobility. So different topics were held there. Then we held a community planning week. So 7 different community workshops were held across the city with 74 different attendees. Admittedly, these were not as highly attended as what I would have preferred to see. You'll see a little bit of information on some of the slides, and it was attached to your packet as well. We ended up getting 1,169 survey responses. So our survey was open from September 4th through December 31st. We're not scoped to be able to provide a statistically valid survey. That's just not within the budget that we have for this. I will say, after we changed our messaging associated with getting people involved, we saw the number of surveys double within 2 to 3 weeks. And it turns out negative messaging about tell us where your car washes that you don't want really is very effective with getting the community to interact. We've had over 4,990 website visits, most of those actually being unique, over 4,000 of them being unique, which is positive. 228 people have signed up for emails associated with where the plan is at. During Community Planning Week, you'll see on the next slide, we had a variety of different ways for people to engage with us. So we received 25 comment cards. This is just an indication that somebody didn't want to participate in one of the other ways and wanted to leave a silent card. All of this information, like the in-depth roof, will be supplied within the plan itself. We can certainly start sending them out to council if that's the desire, but this is just the rough numbers and didn't want to get through it. Our online ad views tripled whenever we changed our messaging. So that will be a different approach that we take whenever we do the April outreach, is we're hoping to get a lot more traction that way. So just be prepared to see more ads from us that say something about a car wash or a casino. So hopefully we can incite people to come and talk about this plan with us. So we have done ads on all of the ones that are listed here. We've done interviews with every public media source that we can do. We've done press releases associated with things. We've had tables on weekends at Strawberry Fest, interacted with over 200 people at Strawberry Fest while asking some polling questions to them, such as, what should be the priority for Billings' future? And the overwhelming response was public safety. Another question we asked is, where should we focus new growth? The overwhelming response was the Heights. So we have Harvest Fest, where we interacted with 210 people there, and we asked another question to the public and asking what is the biggest challenge facing Billings in the next 20 years, and that was an overwhelming response of housing cost. Those are things that went into the drafting of the plans and things that we were considering. So we also did tables at Phillips 66 where we more tried to get people to sign up to get the listserv higher numbers, as well as at the Building and Remodeling Expo. It's just a little bit hard to get traction at some of those events, but we try to be there to be available to the public out of our regular office hours. We've placed flyers at 194 businesses across town. Midway through the survey being open, we reevaluated what sections of demographic were missing and dropped off at different businesses, such as like daycares or vape shops, to try to target different groups of people. But we have a conclusive list of those businesses. Flyers were placed in every swag bag from the open house, and we've given presentations at all of those places listed on the screen. So this is just a visual graphic associated with the 194 businesses that our staff has dropped off flyers to across town to get the word out. And we're talking about 20 or 30 flyers that we leave them at the bank teller, writing on your deposit slip. We do it as best we can. And if you have a place that you feel like we missed or a place that you'd like us to go to, please tell us, because we are very much open to feedback and we're trying to get the word out the best that we can within our budget constraints. On the next slide, you'll see we bought billboards across town to try and passively, you're sitting at a stoplight. How can you hear about the community planning week, taking that approach? The one different colored billboard was just installed a little bit later than the other ones were. It is still up. I was considering asking them to change it as we get a little closer to April so that we can try some of that different messaging that we saw. Again, I'm not a marketing specialist. I'm better at land use than I am marketing, but this was just us giving it our best shot. This was how we engaged. So like I alluded to earlier, we had multiple ways: the visual preference board, the mapping where we had lots of conversations with people, the community canvas where they could write down ideas and thoughts associated with different topics that we had, the survey, the comment cards. So those were all different ways that the community planning week had those interactive stations for people to give us their comments, tell us what they would like to see. So what I just concluded was what we've done for Billings 2045. I wanted to emphasize that we've had outreach associated with the West End plan as well. So what you see on the screen here was specific efforts associated with the West End plan. That was led by our consultant there. The West End plan draft was actually submitted to us recently, and we're in the process of reviewing that right now with the hopes of having that to be able to release to council and to the public to start their review of the document and see if we're on track with what they were hoping for there. And the Heights plan also has had a similar effort. This is a summary of what we have seen regarding the Heights plan. The Heights plan is expected to see a draft of that by the end of March for staff's review, and then having a public meeting afterwards and rolling that out to the public so that the Heights can participate with that as well. Both of those plans, again, just feed into the Billings 2045 item and have specifics related to the way that it is different in the parts of the city there. We hope to do more neighborhood plans and have a neighborhood planner that was added as part of the budget cycle 2 cycles ago, I believe, and hope to identify other spots throughout the city that we can do. Those are just items that were started before the Billings 2045 to try to take big chunks out of the big planning process.
So we'll give you a little snapshot here of what we've heard through our process so far, through the different mechanisms that Anna just outlined. In terms of our survey results, people say that access to open space and healthcare are our greatest assets. Public safety, as she said, and housing costs rose to the top in terms of very most important issues. The preferred development type is single family detached residential and also neighborhood scale commercial type of development. And the most important role for zoning is to protect landowners' property rights. And then lastly, Billings has a major potential if development is properly targeted. And there's a lot of kind of underneath all this, but these are those big highlights. The themes overall was that growth must be more intentional and coordinated across the city. that infrastructure services and growth have to be looked at together. They can't, it's not one or the separate. They've got to be combined and looked at holistically. As we mentioned, housing affordability, housing choice are big concerns for people looking at the community and living in the community. Transportation and city connectivity continue to need improvements, and there is work going along with this, both looking at our current long-range transportation plan as such, but also the transportation corridor analysis that was launched as well. And the consultant teams are actually overlapped on that too. So there's work going on there. And they actually we did some community outreach at a couple of those events with that project as well. Community and reinvestment in existing neighborhoods matters. Character, downtown, and that sense of place are priorities for people that are in Billings. And then environmental stewardship, and then that quality of life, balancing that with our growth were some of the big themes. Just some numbers in terms of what we're looking at for projections going from now for the next 20 years. I'll just hit on a couple of these. Population looking at an increase of about 30,000 people by 2045. That equates to about little over 16,000 housing units that need to be added to the city, and about almost 22,000 jobs. The other numbers get into sort of the demand for space, office, retail, industrial. Very interesting. There's some flattening on some of that that's being seen, and that kind of fits in with things that are happening nationally with some of those sectors. But just to give you a picture of kind of what that's looking like. We have as part of our consultant team, we have SB Friedman, who's an economic development analysis firm that's partnered with Orion Planning and Design for this, and they have been focused on this piece and are completing some more additional economic analysis and demographic analysis for us right now that we're going to be able to be rolling out too. And then housing units, this was just an interesting sort of snapshot we looked at based on knowing that if we need to add about 16,000 units by 2045, this is looking back from fiscal 19 to 25 across our residential construction. And you'll see those numbers vary obviously year to year. Big spike in fiscal 22. We had a lot of multifamily that was added that year. But if you look at that, we've been averaging about 717 units per year in this time frame. And we need to be, if we're going to hit that 16,000, we need to be about 810. So we're not as low as maybe some folks have thought we are, but certainly that you see kind of where that needs to be going. And it really does need to be across all these different housing types if we're going to be able to make that work. So we're going to get into some more where we want to get some input and feedback from you on this piece of this overall effort. So in as I mentioned, in the new law, there's a section that's specifically about encouraging development of housing in communities. And the way the way this was structured is there's 14 options that you can pick from to show that you are encouraging housing development in your community. We have to do at least 5 of those. That's the minimum per the state law. And you can do as many as above that as you would like. What we have done with our interim planning commission and the way we set this up with what's in your memo and on the screen here is we've spent 2 meetings with the interim planning commission talking through these, explaining some of these we're already doing them. So great for us, but there's things that need a little work and there's some that we're not doing. And so we bounced all that off of the interim planning commission to get their initial feedback so we could help focus better kind of what we're trying to do with the drafting, and then be able to kind of work from there. So what you're seeing here, and we can go through these, I guess, however you want to do that. But like each of the items, so some of these are already required, like allowing as a permitted use at least duplex wherever a single unit is allowed. That was passed in 2023 in the legislature and is in place now, and we've been allowing that since that legislative passed. And it's important to note that took effect and applies to current zoning and land use separately from the future land or the Montana Land Use Planning Act. So we had to put that in place right away and make that accessible. So that's happening now. It's already being done. And so there was the IPC, great, we move forward and their recommendation was keep doing that, don't change it. Zoning for higher density housing near transit and employment centers, higher education. This was, we really were looking at this. We looked at this. We've talked to transit about this with a couple of their main transfer centers, but also IPC basically said, hey, let's look at creating an overlay in some appropriate areas around the city where we could really focus this and make this be productive. And so it's not just transit, that's one option, but where we have our higher education facilities, where we have some of our employment centers, there's some opportunity to be able to do that. And that would basically be an area that we would focus and look at in those areas. We don't have that, we haven't started doing that, but that's the idea. And that's what the IPC said. Yes, we should take a run at this. We have some real potential in some of the areas where some of these types of uses are. Eliminating or reducing off-street parking requirements to require no more than one parking space per dwelling unit. So we have looked at parking quite a bit before, but there's a House Bill 492 that just passed in the 2025 session that'll kicks in October 1st of this year that actually does do this and actually specifically target certain uses to say no more parking requirements, like for daycares as an example. If you're doing a daycare, you don't have to meet parking, any city parking requirements. We're going to have to amend the code to address that. So that's coming and is targeted to take effect per last year's legislative session this fall. And so, okay, we can move forward, and at the very least, we can do what that statute says. And there's a couple different pieces there. I won't go into that right now, but that they specifically called out the uses. Eliminating impact fees for accessory dwelling units or developments that include multi-unit dwellings, or reducing those fees by 25%. Looking at navigating this when we come back and look more at our infill policy, which is not happening right now as part of the overall land use planning work, but has been brought up. Council has talked about this and asked about this. We have an infill policy on the books. It's actually from 2011, but surprisingly, there's things in there that are absolutely applicable today. So it was even more forward thinking than we probably thought in 2011, but there's a lot of looking at like implementation there that could be done. But we're looking at that next winter, spring, just because we can't try to do that right now. So that would be something down the road. Allowing as permitted at least one internal or detached ADU. This is already allowed within our zoning code, so we're already doing that. Allowing for single room occupancy developments. Our code already allows this. This is like a boarding house type of thing. And I guess our discussions internally of this have been that used to actually be a really common, housing option back in the 50s, 60s, maybe even to the 70s, has kind of gone away and isn't a thing the way it used to be, but we do allow it. It's in our code. When we did our update of our entire code, redid it in 2021, that was something that was included. We just haven't seen that kind of development happen recently. But it's already there. Allowing as a permitted use triplex or fourplex where a single unit dwelling is permitted. Again, proposing to put this off and navigate this potentially with that infill discussion. This gets into some conversations that the legislature has had where they first went from allowing a duplex in any place where a single unit is allowed, and then going to say, well, okay, let's go on and allow a triplex where that's allowed. And now let's maybe look at a fourplex where that's allowed, which has some implications, especially where you could end up at everywhere that you can have residential, you can have a fourplex at the minimum. So that's significant. There's a lot of context and issues there that are maybe not, haven't been fully vetted and looked at per that. So anyway, the IPC said, yeah, let's kind of put that on the later burner. And then eliminating minimum lot sizes or reducing the existing minimum lot sizes required by at least 25%. Recommendation here is not to implement this, but partly this is because our current code, we don't have specific minimum lot sizes anymore. We have frontage standards. So your lot, you have to meet certain width requirements, which obviously does, mathematically dictate your lot size to some extent, but it doesn't, but you can go deeper. So there's a flexibility there. We don't have that in place anymore. We got rid of that when we did our big code update in 2021. So that one is basically, we kind of keep going where we're at. And that was what IPC is recommending as well. Eliminating aesthetic, material, shape, bulk, size, floor area, and other requirements. This we are mostly not doing also right now. You can pick out some specific areas of the community. The East Billings Urban Rural District, their code, which is different than the rest of the city, does have some material and facade and things to some extent. It's more than any, what else we have in the city otherwise, but it's also not super substantial in this area. Some other communities in the state had a big section of this, like very big. When we updated our 2021 code, we had a lot of internal and external discussions with the development community, residents about this. And one of the concerns was, hey, if you start saying it needs to be, metal or fake stone or real stone or whatever, that causes a lot of challenges with costs, with construction. Like it just adds a whole other thing. Let's let those things kind of get decided as people are building. So we did not go there at that time. And so this really is, again, there's not really much to do that here in our code. So IPC, again, saying, hey, let's just not leave that alone. Specifically allowing zoning to encourage tiny homes. This is already in the code. This is allowed. You can do this across our residential districts. There's a specific piece of the building code that's very important here that's been adopted by the state, Appendix Q, which specifies if you're doing a tiny home and meeting the building code that you follow some criteria. But in terms of zoning, you can do that. You just have to come in and make sure you're meeting that when you do your building permit. So that's already a thing. Eliminating setback requirements or reducing those. Recommendation not to implement that. We actually did change some setbacks and did build 2 zones and such in our 2021 code. There's some more kind of backstory on this regarding context and transition between different developments that we're concerned that we really don't think that going tighter at this point is really necessary. And also on the side setbacks, if you get past less than 3 feet, you start getting into building code where you have to have it has to be fire resistant construction, which is a whole other thing that people usually don't want to get into in most of the projects that they're doing. So recommending not to move forward. The IPC is recommending not to move forward on that. And then building height for dwelling units by at least 25%. Again, we already have some pretty well-scaled height allowances for our residential development, our multifamily, all those pieces. And we also are similarly, like the K here, wrangling with transitional situations where you have infill development and you may have an existing construction that's only 1 story, even though maybe 2 or 2.5 stories is allowed. But when you start having 2 or 2.5 stories built next to it, that seems very significant. And so trying to just balance that as we go forward. So that was also recommended not to do anything with that right now. And then the last 2. So multi-unit dwellings or mixed use as permitted on all lots where office, retail, or commercial. That's already required. That was in SB 245 from the 2023 legislative session. And actually our code also really hit that pretty significantly when we updated it. So nothing really to do there. And then allowing multi-unit dwellings as a permitted use on all lots where triplexes or fourplexes are permitted. So this is the continued trajectory where pretty soon you can build as many units as you want on any residential lot in the whole world. And so that's a concern again, context is really important in these situations. So still looking at that, but that's a concern about, again, how we balance that with existing development and how you transition and such. So, and is there anything else I'm missing to add there? Just zipping through those. So open to questions and discussion on these as well as just overall information.
All right, so Mr. Boyette had his hand up first and then Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Last year, there were about 100 people here wanting to protest a zoning. What am I going to do with those people when there's no zoning commission or any city council involvement? Do I send them to your office, that 100 people? I mean, there's not going to even be community, there won't be a neighborhood meeting anymore. I think it looks like there is no control. It's no local authority. Do we have any say-so from the state, or we're just screwed?
So Councilmember Boyette and Mayor and Council, I guess I go back to what I said earlier, kind of from what Councilmember Kennedy was expressing, that same kind of frustration and concern, which is the plan and the map that you adopt is what everybody's working off of. And so that's why, like, the input we're getting now from the residents and from the community informs that, and then you ultimately and informs the planning commission, who makes a recommendation to you, and then you make that final decision. So really what you would have to say is, well, we went through this process and we adopted this plan and this map, and that's how we got to where we are, and that's how those decisions are being made. I don't disagree with you that, yeah, there's going to be people that are going to be who missed the whole thing and are going to be upset, and we're going to have to talk to them and work through that. There is the comment period that's available to them. Yeah, I think it's going to be a growing pains situation, absolutely, and it's going to be that way across the state. I mean, for sure. So,
the piece I would add, Mayor, is, hey, and council, critical not to point people towards administration, not because we don't want to take that responsibility, but it literally is set up where you're adopting the plan. I think the points you're making are well taken because it's so different than what we're accustomed to. But legislatively, yes, Councilmember Kennedy, the legislature knew exactly what they were doing. And they were saying the state of Montana has some of the most expensive housing, one of the largest gaps in salaries to housing, and they're trying to find ways to streamline the process. And that's exactly what this intent is. I'm not saying it's right, but it is, as you guys have said, it's not uncommon in other states that are growing a lot faster than we are. But that is the reality of the world that we're living in, is legislatively they are saying you need to do this kind of a process.
Thank you. All right. In this order, Council Members O'Donnell, Aspen, Leiter, and then Neese.
Thank you. Wyeth, back to the chart that showed the anticipated growth of the city, the 1.1%, if I understand it correctly, CAGR was that. What is that? CAGR. What's it stand for?
That's the compounded annual growth rate, I believe.
So 1.11%. Is that based upon the current growth of the city in terms of developments in the county that are annexed to the city?
Councilmember O'Donnell and Mayor and Council, it's based on, I mean, our economic analysis folks are looking at estimations based on, yes, current growth, past growth, and sort of that trend. It's not, I mean, when we annex properties into the city, that can make a difference. I'll tell you that mostly the properties so far that we've annexed are usually vacant, and then they get developed after they come in the city. So we're not necessarily adding a lot of that population. It's already out there. However, as Anna, I think, mentioned earlier on, our study area is the city of Billings limits plus the annexation area. So we are looking at those numbers in terms of what's out there as well.
So hypothetically, if the city decided not to do any annexation, if that just stopped, that would decrease our mandated 16,000 housing units by that time, wouldn't it?
Councilmember O'Donnell, Mayor and Council, not exactly. So when we're looking at the trajectory of growth and coming up with those estimates, it's based on the past growth, like actual realized building permits that have happened within the city, including like our annexation areas. If we eliminated annexations, we would then have to look at how do we accommodate the growth within what we have already. So looking at infill development a lot closer, looking at higher density whenever things are coming into the office, we'd have to still figure out how to accommodate the growth, but just looking at the properties that are already existing within the city. So I think one thing that is important to realize, and it's coming to you all soon, there's also an annexation committee, which I know some of you guys have not gone through that process yet. I'm sorry, I do not mean to say it like that. Members of council have not gone through the process yet. It will be in front of you soon. And what we do is we take a look at the limits of annexations and kind of try to determine how far is too far. How far are we willing to extend infrastructure associated with it, which will also feed back into this plan. So to answer your question, we do have to accommodate the growth. The stopping of annexations would essentially limit where we can accommodate the growth.
If I could just make one final comment. At first glance, because I don't know the details, but I'm really upset with the state for sticking its nose in their municipal affairs. We should be able to determine what's going to happen to our city instead of having the state dictate. I really resent that. Thank you.
Councilmember Aspenlater.
So this is where I'm going to get crossed up with a lot of my cohorts on my side of this council. The reason that this happened, and Billings is certainly not the worst case scenario. You know, the western cities are by far the worst case scenario, Missoula in particular. But it is exactly the unpredictability that councils have created in policies that councils have adopted that has brought this about. It's the 100 people showing up and saying, hey, your property rights are not equal to my property rights, and you can't do on your property what the law allows per the documents that and the policies you've adopted. That's exactly what this is trying to fix, is introducing some level of predictability for development and growth to happen at an expedited pace that is just not happening now because we get crossed up. And I'll be the first to admit, like, I did that on a West End property off of Rimrock. I voted against something that probably would have been administratively passed through in my first year on the council. I did that. And I led the charge to kill that development. It probably would not have failed had this process been in place. That's the thing that we have to balance, is property rights of owners of land that are undeveloped are still property rights. They still have the right to develop their land as they see fit, so long as it fits within a coherent process and plan in the neighborhood. Because you don't like duplexes doesn't mean you can't build duplexes next to my house, which was next to an open field. You know, we get a lot of comments about, oh my God, you're going to bring renters into town. Like renters are some kind of second-class citizen, or that's automatically going to bring crime into your community. Like my neighborhood off of Colton, I live in a nice neighborhood, which was directly adjacent to 80 acres that was owned by the Zimmermans forever and ever and ever, amen. And we built a whole lot of apartments there. You know what? I have not ever had anybody break into my house. When I lived on Yale in a perfectly developed neighborhood, I got my house broke into. And everybody owned their houses in that neighborhood. So, like, that's part of how we got to where we got to. We have to be able to, if we're going to continue to grow, we have to be able to streamline the development process and introduce some predictability to development. That's what drives uncertainty, drives cost, and uncertainty drives away development and growth in our community. And that's what this is trying to do. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But it's the first stab at doing it. And the reality is nobody cares about how this city is going to develop until it develops next to them. That's clearly evident by how few people actually participated in this process. So if you're not going to be engaged in the public process, then candidly, you need to sit down and shut up, because you had every opportunity to do it. Or pick up your coat and go start knocking doors and run for this council. So those things just don't land with me. And like I said, this is where I get crossed up with the people that generally have elected me on the west end of Billings. But that's the reality of growth in these communities. We have to also remember that there are property rights associated with people trying to develop land and invest millions and millions and millions of dollars in our community to drive our tax base to continue to fund our police officers and our fire department and all of the great things that we enjoy about this city. So There's a balance on the other side of this. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But it's the legislature's stab at saying, hey, you guys have been screwing this up for a long time, so we're going to put some brackets around you. It's important for us to take our time as we're analyzing these maps and looking at where we're going to start to identify what's going to be allowed where inside the annexation donuts. Those are the places we need to pay attention to. What your neighborhood is doesn't really matter because it's probably already developed. What we need to be looking at are the info parcels and the annexation donut. That's what we need to focus on. Don't focus on how commercial property X is. That doesn't matter. That's insignificant. But focus on where the empty land is in and around our community, because that's where we're going to have these conversations. So lastly, I guess we don't have anything yet, and we're going to be 3 months away from a proposed adoption. And I guess I draw a little bit of ire about the West End plan because that contract got issued in November of 2023. The Heights plan started a full year after that, and it's almost at the same completion date. And that's frustrating. That's frustrating. I know you got consultants on both, but holy smokes. I hope we take those things into consideration when we're hiring consultants, past performance, because these things are putting us in a box to get this plan done. So I don't want to try to force the issue with this plan adoption if we're not quite ready. I think that would be bad for us to do. But I hope we can spend some significant time and have some opportunities as a council to really look at the vacant land issues and the lands adjacent to the city that are identified in our annexation boundaries. That's where the rubber is going to meet the road, and that's where people are going to get frustrated. So those are my general comments and my soapbox for the night.
Thank you, Council Member Neese.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And Scott, thank you for saying that, because I agree with probably 99% of what you said. I think you said it very well. And especially to the point about people having to be participating in it and what we're doing. I mean, I think Councilmember Boyette and Shaw and I were on the council in 21 when Billings went through the most comprehensive zoning code changes in this state and probably in the history of Billings. And so we did a lot of what Councilmember Astronaut was complaining about, what the cities used to be doing. We fixed a ton of that in 21. Unfortunately, the rest of the cities didn't, and we are now being punished for that because a lot of the stuff that the state's saying you have to do, we're already doing. A lot of these things they're mentioning about square footage, we already eliminated square footage because we went to frontage. And so my concern is with this is we've got all these 14 issues that are being presented tonight. And this is really what Wyatt, I think, was wanting us to weigh in on, which we haven't addressed really as a council, any single one of those items. And this has taken the commission probably months to go through this list of 14. And we're seeing it for the first time of what the commission has said. And so my concern about this is we're not going to have enough time to talk about these 14 items. And the fact, when it comes to Councilmember Roy, when you mentioned about who are we going to complain to? They're going to complain to us because this is the time they either participate, and this is time, as Y said, we're making the decisions to control what that map is, or whether it goes to administrator or whether it comes back to council. And so right now, the state requires only 5. We're probably doing all of those 5 now. We wouldn't have to change a single thing on that list of 14 because we're well within that 5. Now, in my opinion, I think we can roll back. If we can roll back some of what we did successfully in recode that the state took away in 23, I think that would be a better option because we had better choices, better housing choices, and protected both the rights of property owners current and the ability for new property owners developing to be able to develop what they needed to. And it was a lot better process than what the state is forcing us into. And so when I look at that list of 14, and the more I understand this whole process of how we are either going to retain the control, the state's allowing us to retain the control of how the land use is processed, because they're only limited to us to have at least 5. If we go over 5, we're then advocating that decision-making process to the administration, and that we're giving away that decision process. And so if you want to have more control over what is done, you would have to limit the amount of what we allow the administration to do. Same thing when it comes to land use map. And why I think in your email, if I understood correctly, and you maybe want to email out to the council, is the land use, the state doesn't specifically state that you have to have multiple land options on a particular parcel. Now, I agree with Council Member Aspinaller's point is, as you're developing, greenfield outside the city, we should have multiple choices there, because a developer has to be able to have the ability to develop on new property or infill and things like that with multiple choices. Those are the keys where I think that we need to focus on to make sure that maybe that's where we put the multiple choice on the land use map, and not on what's already zoned. So we already went through the 21 rezoning, and all the properties in the city got rezoned. And if the land use map just reflects that for the current zoning, then that's all we need to do. The state's not telling us we have to have multiple choices, because the state says you have to have multiple choices of affordable housing or of housing choices. We already did that with the recode. We have many, many multiple choices of housing. And so it depends on what you and we as a council want to do. Do we want to allow this to go very, very, just let everything be multiple choice, and so that we never see anything that really comes, or if we give them most freedom to the developers to do whatever they want with the lands, even currently developed lands, we never have to see a thing. Or do we say, listen, we're going to say, well, listen, it's already zoned in 21, let's leave that zoning, but anything that's vacant parcels, undeveloped, let's take a look at maybe giving choices within that land. The other considers, one of the other items is on transportation hubs or schools, things like that, colleges. They're proposing to put a bus transfer station up in the heights in the middle of a single family neighborhood. Well, if we adopt this code, suddenly that entire single family neighborhood is going to be targeted with an overlay plan to put high density units in there that can be done. And so those are things we have to look at throughout this whole process. But as Councilman Aspinall said, we've only got a few months to do this, and we have not had the opportunity to have the discussion and talk about this very much. And so I sure would like to see us have more discussions on this. And if not the whole council, maybe, 3 or 4 or 5 council members can be with staff meetings similar to what they're doing with the commission, to make sure that council is understanding this and going forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you. I bring us back up to 30,000 feet a little bit. So reading through these 14 requirements, question 1 is, the ones we're already doing, we still get to count those, right? Okay. So we don't have to add 5 new things. We're already meeting, it looks like to me, the requirement of the law. Okay. That's great. And then my, encouragement to council would be, I personally don't have a problem with any of the recommendations that were presented. I mean, I think you identified very clearly the ones that are tied to the infill policy as a different discussion, which I obviously is important, but I understand that there's only so much capacity. So I would say I think it's our job to, if we disagree with the recommendation, to let staff know. But otherwise, I would say from my perspective, I'm fine with the recommendations that have been presented.
Anyone else? Mr. Aspinall.
And this is just about process. As we do these things, like at this point in time, I hate everything and everybody. After 7:30, if we're going to have these kind of hard conversations and this kind of important stuff, can you please make sure this is not the last agenda item? It's the first one when everybody is wired up and ready to go and ready to be completely engaged, because at 8:30 at night, the level of engagement goes down exponentially up in these seats.
Mayor and Councilmember Asmeyer, absolutely we can. Just, part of the, and I know you already know this, but part of what we consider is who's going to be in the audience relative to other entities or people engaged on projects. And so when it's staff and you, it tends to go last. But if you say, like budget, I'll say the same thing about budget. Most important thing you do each year, we can put it first. Just accept the fact that one of the things that'll need to be said to constituents and others is there's a reason why you're coming after something as important as a land use area. The other thing I would ask is maybe you may want to choose to have evenings where this kind of a conversation is it or starts earlier, with a larger break in the middle than just 5 minutes to use the bathroom or something. But
It was 9 minutes.
9 minutes. But critically important that you guys are on your best game and also, observe there's a reason sporting events aren't 4 and 5 hours long, right?
So for me, out of curiosity, so what do you propose you're going to do next?
So, Mayor and Council, basically, we wanted to get this out in front of you. Because the IPC had just come up with these recommendations on this specific element, and it's a big part of the plan. We wanted to get that in front of you to take a look at and to provide feedback. Obviously, yes, if we we're not going to say, well, if you didn't speak tonight, then game over at all. We expect you to provide more feedback. We're basically helping right now use this with our consultant team to say, hey, this is what we're hearing and what we're getting with the IPC right now to help kind of them focus that as they work on some of these chapters that then we're going to bring to you. So I guess we want to know from you, in the next, week or two, if you're absolutely not, we do not agree with the IPC, do not do this, then I guess that would be helpful to us. But we're going to be coming to you with more of the draft materials as well, and the future land use map that was brought up. That's obviously a huge part of this, to be able to have you take a look at that and spend a session on that as well.
So as I understand it, you're going to roll the West End neighborhood plan, if I called it correctly, and then the Heights plan. It's going to roll up. It's going to have something to do with this particular plan. Is that correct?
Yeah. So Mayor and Council, and to Councilmember Asmelayer's point, we've unfortunately run into challenges where the timing of those two plans has bled further into this process than we had initially hoped, especially the West End. So the approach we've taken, and it's still valid and has been very valuable, is that because Billings is very large and we knew we had this overall land use plan effort and map we had to do, we started those two big neighborhood areas first. And those have informed absolutely what we're looking at and actually are informing the future land use map for the whole community, because we've got a West End look and a Heights look, and then the consultants are looking at the whole thing, and we're going to roll that together. So yes, those are all coming and helping inform this discussion. We're already using that information as part of this. Our plan of adoption is to try to coordinate as closely as possible with this land use plan and map, with those two informing. But that's the approach.
Oh, okay. And then you're going to come to us with a map of the city of Billings and some areas that you think you're going to expand to, and you're going to say, here are your options, plan the future. Is that?
So Mayor and Council, we're going to be more specific about, and what we can do with that and that future land use map discussion is give you an overview of the approach with the categories that we have now. And then I think we are aware and we would look at, call out some quote unquote hotspot areas, some focus areas that we would say, hey, you really should look at this. And then obviously you can, if you see other things that you want to look at too, then we would do that. But we're and I'll hit on just as an example. So Councilmember Neese mentioned, we mentioned this idea of development, higher density development around transit areas. So that proposed Met transit stop or transfer center in the Heights, which is going to be very small, is in a neighborhood that's fully developed. Yeah, we wouldn't propose to drop down an overlay on top of that and say, oh yeah, let's, bulldoze all this and build something else, that wouldn't be the right place for that. But conversely, if you look at the Stewart Park Transfer Center and you look at the mall and you look at potential redevelopment out there, yeah, that's probably a good place to look at an overlay, because in the long term, there could be some significant development here. So those are the kind of things we can share that with you and help kind of hone that, so you're not just, at sea, so to speak. And then we can talk about.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what's the deadline here for this project?
So the deadline through the legislature is actually the end of May. We know that we're going to be going into June for sure with this. I mean, we have every expectation. However, and I mentioned this to Councilmember Neese in his email that he sent over the weekend, and I provided information back. We're going to be called up to the legislature probably in May to report on how we're doing, us and all the other communities. And the key there is going to be that we are doing really well and we're very close to wrapping this up, is what I would hope that I can bring to them, because
May of next year.
No, this year. And so I think if we can hit as close, but we don't expect to hit right in May, that's going to be important. And that goes into this other issue, which is the council, and it goes to these housing items too, being very thoughtful about if we're going to say, well, we're just going to do 5 or whatever, that the legislature is watching this very closely. And so the more we can be thoughtful about, well, maybe 7 or 8 is like really the sweet spot for Billings, I would encourage you to think about that, because I think the more we kind of go, oh, well, we're going to kind of push and back, or we're just going to take it to the minimum, we will probably then in 2027 and stuff have new legislation that maybe isn't what we want. And so the more we can be like, hey, we took this, we embraced it, we did what we think Billings can do to fit into this with what you gave us, that's going to be a really good position, and we go from there. But yes, we have to be getting this completed this summer. And if we don't, then then we're at the mercy of the legislature and the state to say, yeah, you guys, you're not doing what we told you to do.
I guess,
okay.
Can I add, what I heard was, and I can be corrected here, what I heard was that, we're wanting to have more meetings, which I completely agree with, to kind of dive into this. To give you a little background here, it took the Interim Planning Commission 1 session to decide, and 1 session where we went over it to make sure our notes were correct. So that being said, I guess it would be my preference that we could all have this on a very soon council agenda, because with the reality of the May, which we are aware that we're not going to perfectly hit, it would be good to keep this conversation going. The benefit of keeping the conversation going is that we are also still getting the word out. So I think my thought would be is maybe there is a lunch meeting that we have that could be publicly advertised as an idea. I don't want to step on administrative's toes, but like that, if our work sessions are full and our regular sessions are full with budget items, maybe there needs to be a different time where we can have a discussion and it's still publicly advertised and we're still getting into the root and the meats of the potatoes of what we're looking to discuss. And that would be my hope, is that we could come to a consensus and dig a little deeper as is being requested by council.
I think that's an excellent idea. Thank you for bringing it up. And sometimes we do that. We rarely add meetings, but this is the kind of thing that is worthy of that consideration, in our opinion, for you guys, to be focused on the issue.
All right. I think that's it for now. Thank you, both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
All right. Highlighting upcoming agenda items of council interest, that would be Mr. Kukulski. If you have anything for us, sir?
No, you've got it, everything that we're working on. So,
council discussion, Mr. Kennedy.
I have one. And Kevin, how are we doing on the grant?
Councilmember Kennedy, I've not got an update report this week, but this was their first day back in the office, so I can get you an update and email it out to you.
Okay, thank you. What we need is, we are working on a grant through Parks. I was called by a legislator who is pushing us for $350,000 for the South Park pool. And with that project, we are going to need a letter of support for the project that will go to the Department of Commerce for this grant. It's due at the end of the month through the Department of Commerce. And so my piece of this is getting the letters of support. So I would ask that we have a letter of support before the end of the month on our agenda so we can approve of a letter of support so we can put it on with the grant.
Chris, do we need to have that as a council approval action, or can
I think you
and the
guys
mayor just do it?
Probably just do it.
I think for a request for this body to support a grant application, put that letter in. I don't think
Or
there
if-
has to be a formal action
If
on running it to accept the grant. I mean, if we were to get it, there's certainly a formal process to that. But as far as you all nodding to either sign it or have the mayor sign it, that doesn't require a Monday night agenda item.
yeah,
Great.
if you
Thank
can
you.
just
All
work
right.
with Councilman Kennedy on that, that'd be great.
Well,
Either-
and that gives you an update of where we are with this grant going forward.
Okay. Any other council discussion? Councilmember Pittman?
Yes, I don't want this to take off into a whole different direction, but when we first got elected, we started meeting with the city administrator, and he had presented the idea to a lot of the new council members, the possibility of maybe changing the date of the meeting or some of the format. And I'm just wanting to see if that's something we can go forward with, at least bringing it to a work session, to where as a whole council, we have this discussion. I know some of the previous council, you've had this discussion before. And I would like to hear both sides of the pros and cons of this, if that's amenable to everybody on the council. And then second is, and if you have a problem, just yell at me or whatever. It always works. And then the second thing, as a business courtesy, at some point I would like to invite the Friends of the USS Billings to present the status of the ship, why we support it, how we've supported it in the past. So I'll be bringing them probably to a business session just as a council courtesy.
Councilman, the one thing that I would hate to do is have a big, long discussion on the night we have the board meetings. So I would just ask that we put it on an agenda and vote it up or vote it down.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. All right, anything else? That leads us to public comment on non-agenda items. Any public comment? Excuse me.
My name is Jeff Kettleson. I live on Ward. My name is Jeff Kettleson. I live in Ward number 5. And I'm just a citizen here trying to learn how city government works. And I like to listen, and I like to maybe give you my opinion. With the stuff that the state is sending you, the 5 items, since the city's already met 5 of the items, then why would you generally want to acquiesce some of your powers away to the city administrator? You know, unless you're afraid of hiding from the citizens, but you know that they're going to come out and you're going to be the ones on the hot seat. If you give away the ability to make the decisions that this body decides to make, you know, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. And then that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public discussion? Okay. Thank you. Seeing none, we are adjourned.